infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
A lot of crickets. All right, I think we're started. Let's go ahead and get started today. Starting out with a reading from Kurt Vonnegut Jr. The book is called Cat's Cradle. What a Wampometer Is, Chapter 24. Which brings me to the Bacchus concept of a wampometer. A wampeater is the pivot of a cuirass. No cuirass is without a wampeater. Bacchus tells us, just as no wheel is without a hub. Anything can be a wampeater. A tree, a rock, an animal, an idea, a book, a melody, the Holy Grail. Whatever it is, the members of its cuirass revolve around it in majestic chaos of a spiral nebula. The orbits of the members of a cuirass about their common wampeater are spiritual orbits, naturally. It is souls and not bodies that resolve. As Bacchanal invites us to sing, around and around and around we spin, with feet of lead and wings of tin. And wampeaters come and wampeaters go, Bacchanal tells us. At any given time, a cuirass actually has two wampeaters, one waxing in importance, one waning. And I am almost certain that while I was talking to Dr. Breed in Ilium, the wampeater of my cuirass that was just coming into bloom was that crystalline form of water, that blue-white gem, that seed of doom called Ice 9. While I was talking to Dr. Breed in Ilium, Angelica, Franklin, and Newton Honecker had in their possession seeds of Ice 9, seeds grown from their father's seeds, chips, in a manner of speaking, off the old block. What was to come of those chips was, I am convinced, a principal concern of my cuirass. Kurt Vonnegut Jr. It's a good book. You should check it out. All right, let's get some Charles Bukowski going. There was actually a request in the comments for more Bukowski. I couldn't believe it. One person likes this. So there you go. Everybody talks too much. When the cop pulled me over, I handed him my license. He went back to radio in the make and model of my car and get clearance on my plates. He wrote the ticket, walked up, handed it to me to sign. I did. He gave me back the license. How come you don't say anything? He asked. I shrugged my shoulders. Well, sir, he said, have a good day and drive carefully. I noticed some sweat on his brow, and the hand that held the ticket seemed to be trembling, or perhaps I was only imagining it. Anyhow, I watched him move his bike, then I pulled away. When confronted with dutiful policemen, or women, in rancor, I have nothing to say to them, for if I truly began, it would end in somebody's death, theirs or mine. So I let them have their little victories, which they need far more than I do. Drive through hell. The people are weary, unhappy, and frustrated. The people are bitter and vengeful. The people are deluded and fearful. The people are angry and uninventive. And I drive among them on the freeway, and they project what is left of themselves in their matter of driving. Some more hateful, more thwarted than others. Some don't like to be passed. Some attempt to keep others from passing. Some attempt to block lane changes. Some hate cars of a newer, more expensive model. Others in these cars hate the older cars. The freeway is a circus of cheap and petty emotions. It's humanity on the move, most of them coming from some place they hated, and going to another they hate just as much or more. The freeways are a lesson in what we have become, and most of the crashes and deaths are the collusion of incomplete beings, of pitiful and demented lives. When I drive the freeways, I see the soul of humanity of my city, and it's ugly, ugly, ugly. The living have choked the heart away. Well, that's just the way it is. Sometimes, when everything seems at its worst, when all conspires and gnaws, and the hours, days, weeks, years seem wasted, stretched there upon my bed in the dark, looking upward at the ceiling, I get what many will consider an obnoxious thought. It's still nice to be Bukowski. Or maybe, it's still nice to be Bukowski. Rhymes. He made a rhyme. Come on, he made a rhyme. Need more for that. All right, let's see. Thank you. Some want me to go on writing about whores and puking. Others say that type of thing disgusts them. Well, I don't miss the whores, although now and then one or another makes an attempt to locate me. I don't know if they miss all the booze and the bit of money I gave them, or if they're enthralled at the way I've immortalized them in literature. Anyhow, they must now make do with whatever men they are able to scrounge up. Those poor darlings had no idea, and neither did I, that those ugly, roaring nights would be fodder, such as even Dostoevsky would not shy away from. Maybe one more. All right. It's got a lot of screaming in it. No, too much screaming. Too much screaming. All right, fine. I don't know where we're going. Let's see what this goes to. Let's make a deal. In conjunction with these rivers of shit that keep rolling through my brain, Captain, Walrus, I can say only that I hardly understand it, and would say any number of Hail Marys to put a stop to it. I'd even go back to living with that whore with the heart of brass, just to keep these rivers of shit from rolling through my brain, Captain Walrus. But of course, I would never stop playing the horses or drinking. But, Captain, to keep these rivers from flowing, I'd promise to never eat eggs again, and I'd shave my head and my balls. I'd live in the state of Delaware, and I'd even force myself to sit through any movie acted in by any member of the Fonda family. Think about it, Captain Walrus. The plum is in the pudding, and the parasol bends to the west wind. I've got to do something about all this. It seems like it never stops. Each man's hell is in a different place. Mine is just up and behind my ruined face. Here you go. One more, and we're done. This is enough poetry for today. Here we go. This is great. You guys will love this. This is a computer poem. It says, 16-bit Intel 8088 chip. With an Apple Macintosh, you can't run Radio Shack programs in its disk drive, nor can a Commodore 64 drive read a file that you have created on an IBM personal computer. Both K-Pro and Osborne computers use the CP-M operating system, but can't read each other's handwriting, for they format, write on, disks in different ways. The Tandy 2000 runs MS-DOS, but can't use most programs produced for the IBM personal computer, unless certain bits and bytes are altered. But the wind still blows over Savannah, and in the spring the turkey buzzard struts and flounces before his hens. So, there you go, computer poem. Starting it out here on the Thomas Hunt Show. Dan's supposed to be here. We waited like 10 minutes, but still no Dan. We've got about 20 people watching right now. Thanks to the 8 people that gave us a thumbs up. That really helps YouTube recommend this show and gets more people to watch it, and then more people call in, and it's just good all over. Thumbs up. They're free. Give them to all your favorite YouTube shows, not just this one. But let's get started. Today is Friday, April 10th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt. This is the Thomas Hunt Show. That makes sense. The price of Bitcoin is down 7.23% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,783, a high of 7,322, and a low of 6,756. That's $1 for 14,693 Satoshis, once again tapping on the famous 15,000 Satoshi barrier. Oh, I thought it played noise. Where's my noise? Oh, no noise today.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
All right, just as good. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is closed, and it took me a minute to figure this out. I was running it through my head. It's Friday. It's Friday at 6 a.m. Why are they playing Jay Leno's Garage on CNBC? And eventually I worked it out that this just isn't any normal Friday. This is Good Friday. So for reasons I can't understand, the stock market is closed for religious reasons. Good Friday is the day that, I'm pretty sure if we want to go back, I would say Jesus was crucified, put into a cave, and 3 days later on Easter, he rose again. I don't know what that has to do with the stock market. Coronavirus cases in the United States, previously around 1.5 million infected, 90,000 dead. Quick refresh. This is worldwide, sorry. Apologies, mistake. Worldwide cases, not United States. 1,633,390. That's 99,493 deaths. As suggested yesterday, let's take a look. Active cases, patients in mild condition, 96%. Patients in serious or critical condition, 4%. So still very violent, but we're just not sure yet. We're waiting for more information. That sound means Dan's here, maybe. Nope, can't see him at all. That's convenient. Hidden. Person is waiting. Well, that's new. New features on Zoom. Interesting. Let's keep moving. Stay the fuck home. All right, ring the bell again. Hi, Dan.
Hey there, how's it going?
It's going good. Doing the blah, blah, blah. Stay the fuck home.
Stay the fuck home.
Stay home. Don't spread the virus. If you go outside, it's not just about you in this world. It's about the 59,000 other people you might spread it to, or maybe even more. Previously, they thought it had a virality of around 3, which the flu is like a 1. So this is much worse than the flu, and that's exponential virality. So that's to the power of 3. Now they think it might be so viral and so infectious to the power of 5. So, it spreads good. Wear a mask. Wearing a mask is great even if you're not sick. If you are sick, it's even better to wear a mask. Less stuff goes into your mouth, less stuff comes out of your mouth. It seems really juvenile that we have to explain it this way, but only within the last week has the WHO and the US government and the CDC and everyone else admitted what we've all known since 1918 in the pandemic. You should wear a mask. It's just not that complicated. Wear a mask. It's easier. It's better. Wear a mask. This is how we think it's going to go. We're getting right up here to our very first curve. Very pleased and excited with ourselves. We are the killers of great disease. We are the kings of the world. The disease is going to go back down. We're going to get to here. We're going to be so excited to go outside again that we're going to reinfect everyone. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And then we're going to say, hey, we should probably go back inside for a while. We'll go back inside then. Get really excited. Let's go outside again. Back inside. Outside. Back inside. So prepare yourself. No one's telling you the truth. Checking out hospital bed resources. Thanks to Nate in the chat for giving us this new chart here. We are in the United States of America, according to this information here, 1 day away until peak resource use. So trying to drill down a little further into that, this big pink number here, I think, is the projected possible dead. So you can see it's a big range, maybe as low as 40,000 dead, maybe as high as 220,000 dead. All right, so our projected line's kind of in the middle here. And I think we're going to be over hospital resources, at least nationwide. I mean, really, this matters more if we drill down, and we have more information here, but I don't know if we're going to do this every day, but let's take a look at New York. New York's one of the hot spots. They have much steeper curve than we saw nationwide, and then we do have this pink bed line here. We are 2 days since peak resource use. So in New York City, they may be making triage decisions, who lives and who dies, who gets a ventilator, stuff like that, who gets a bed, people dying in hallways, stuff like that's happening. However, if we went over,
have they got repurposed like Navy ships as well? Are they floating them in as
yeah,
beds?
they brought in this giant oil tanker, and they have 2 of them. They put one in LA and one in New York. There was a bit of a confusion over the beginning. At first, they thought it would be a good idea to use those for non-COVID patients, but then they found out that really no one's going to the hospital right now. I mean, certainly emergencies and things happen, but it's difficult to take an emergency patient to a random ship somewhere. That's not really our process. So they have allegedly opened them up to COVID patients, but I heard they were pretty much empty recently. There's about 20 people in them, but they have allegedly opened them. They supposedly opened the Javits Center. If we look at Oregon, we see a very different curve than New York City, right? Oregon, Washington went into stay-at-home orders very quickly. They have less population, and we can see the purple line for Oregon, at least, is way up here. They actually have enough beds available. The green line here, ICU's beds, that's a lot lower. Like, it's still possible they might hit that line. But this is interesting information. Let's see. New Orleans is in Louisiana. Let's see, Louisiana. Okay, so, well, we've got a bit of a curve there. We're definitely going to be over the ICU beds, normal hospital beds. I don't even know how many. I guess you need normal hospital beds. Seems like ICU is really the critical point. If people go into there, that's where it gets dangerous. That's where we get into the ventilators. Ventilator numbers projected. It's been 6 days since peak resource use in New Orleans, or at least in Louisiana, the state. I don't know. Interesting numbers. Keep looking at that. I don't know why I have to take Bitcoin out of my title. Thanks for liking this video. I don't know what's going on in the chat. They say you can't talk about current events or something, I guess. But yeah, it's great when you like videos. That helps YouTube promote it to other people. Right now we have about 28 people watching. Thanks for checking us out. It's early still. And 15 likes, so that's very good. Looking at coronavirus cases in the United States, previously around 438,000, around 15,000 dead. Refreshing to get the new numbers. 476,397 infected, 17,843 dead, of which, let's see, we don't seem to have the active. Oh, here we go. Daily cases, active cases, total deaths, new deaths. We don't seem to have the broken down numbers like we do for the entire world here. So I'm not able to get you the status of how serious these infections are. So we're keeping an eye on this as the coronavirus continues. New York power plant sells 30% of its Bitcoin mining hash rate to institutional buyers. That's right. We were talking about this for years and years and years. Power plants can set up Bitcoin miners that they can use to harvest power when their batteries are full. Often these power plants are based on things like geothermal or hydropower, which is continuous. Hydropower is constantly pumping water out. The Niagara Falls never shuts off. So if they have some extra cycles, we could go ahead and take those and mine some Bitcoin. What's especially interesting about this story is that institutional buyers, that means banks, large institutions, large pools of money, are buying this extra Bitcoin mining power. So impressive work there. BitMEX CEO, all in, motherfuckers, on Bitcoin and gold. I like this headline. Arthur Hayes paints a grim picture of the post-COVID world, but apparently he's all in on Bitcoin and gold. I met this guy once. He seems cool. It says, the USD fiction is over. It's time for a new mental crutch. He's opting for Bitcoin and gold. What will your fiction be? If you print too much money to monetize your government debt, your currency craters and inflation runs rampant.
There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
All right, let's keep going. You can now 51% attack Bitcoin Cash for the cost of a single Bitcoin. It's pretty much over. It's been about a year. Pretty much over. TravelX paid $2.3 million in Bitcoin to get its systems back from hackers. Hackers controlled its networks for more than a month. What's great about this story is apparently doesn't say the year. Doesn't say the year, but whenever they did it, they had 285 Bitcoins for the 2.3 million. I guess that's pretty close. That's about 100 Bitcoins is about $1 million, maybe 200. But yes, you think they also should have bought, doubled down. They should have bought more Bitcoins for the next time they're hacked. Then they could have gotten a sale on those Bitcoins. They could have amortized the cost over multiple hacks. Instead, I'm sure they're just assuming they'll only be hacked once, just once. Bitcoin price suddenly drops before 7,000. Ooh. Just keep going. The Fed's $2.3 trillion of new credit. That's why the stock markets, well, they're not up today, but they were up a little yesterday, and they're probably up in after hours trading, whatever they call it, basically, because they're printing another $2.3 trillion, sorry, that's a T.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
And they're just going to start buying up, it sounds like bonds. Sounds like they're just going to be buying bonds. The Federal Reserve.
Infinite has a lot of trillions in it as well, you know.
They say the Fed is buying corporate bonds that are below investment grade, known in Wall Street as junk bonds. So by the Fed coming in as kind of the buyer of last resort, they're hoping to stabilize the market. But of course, economically, I mean, again, maybe we're talking at too basic a level here, and certainly the Fed has their own scientists and economists and so forth. It seems like without any demand, no one wants to go outside, no one wants to buy anything. It doesn't matter what you're doing on all the bond side and the stock side and all these kind of sides. It seems bring demand back, get people buying things, and then we'll get the economy going again. But even then, I still think we're in kind of this central pause period where staying home is the best way to beat the disease, and that's also the best way to kill the economy. So we're working together, right? We're on a big team. Hey, we made it through the Bitcoin news all the way almost to the political news. But let's talk to Dan. How's it going, Dan? What's been going on in England?
It's been pretty good weather, which is annoying because obviously we're in lockdown. So I mean, we're lucky to have a garden, so we can sort of go and chill out in there. We took Hudson out there today, and he was having a mission round on the grass. But yeah, I'd hate it if I was like stuck in a flat. Some people are in like a 9x9 sort of studio flat, and that would be pretty hardcore to deal with for 3 months.
Especially some people made that choice. I know I listened to Michael Moore's podcast, and he talks about how he could have gone to Michigan. I guess he would have had to drive there from New York City, so it's a hike, you know. But I imagine he must have a normal house at least in Michigan. But no, he stayed in New York City. He stayed in his apartment. It sounded really horrible. He said people in the building had died from COVID. So all of the other people who lived in the building were generally freaked out. Your friendly neighbors are now a bunch of those freaks you see at the bathroom sometimes that are holding the door with little paper handles and, you know, they just can't touch anything. Everyone in the world is starting to take on that kind of characteristic. So I imagine being around an apartment building with a bunch of freaked out people, and you're always going to have one person with a full hazmat suit on. So yeah, I don't think it's a good look there. I don't know if people are changing their mind about wanting to live in cities, wanting to live in these little boxes. Previously, I know the trade-off, at least when I lived in the city, was you got to get out of your house, right? You have this little apartment, right? You sleep there, but you go to work all day, spend an hour in the coffee shop, commuting takes forever. You go out to a bar, you know, you go outside. And now with the virus, you can't go outside. So quite a lot has changed.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to go like stay like this forever, and people, even after the the quarantine's off, they'll still stay in and be hermiting. I think that people are going to be celebrating. It'll be like that video where like the cows see daylight for the first time. You know, they start as in out of this like giant.
Oh yeah, I mean
bar,
they're
they
gonna
start
go out, they're
jumping,
gonna
and they're like,
celebrate it.
"Whoa!"
I just think they're gonna respread the virus. I think we're gonna do this dance again. And if you really want to get sad, and again we're gonna try to work our way through the horrible political news and everything else that's happening that just triggers everybody and sets everybody off. But another thing that happened is they're worried, like we talked about yesterday, there's not enough antibodies being formed inside of people, and now they're starting to see reinfections in China. People that had the disease went to the hospital, got cured of the disease, and now, surprise, it's back again. So again, this might be a wave. We might have waves of coronavirus. This, like an infection will spread through your town or your city. Maybe it'll spread through your state or your country. I think it's a continual problem. It's going to come back again. We just don't know enough about this. We have to think more long term. Like, what if this is year one of the common cold or the flu, and we don't have any antibodies? So you got to get them, I got to get them, other people got to get them. Plus, maybe we have to get this thing 2 or 3 times. Maybe 2 or 3 times, then you're building up the antibodies or something. Maybe never get antibodies, but still, yeah, we're not going to be shaking hands. Nobody's going to be kissing and hugging hello. But I think we will anyway. I think the humans can't not do it. But I guess a lot of like political, like in all your like workplace, it's kind of strange. The workplace was weird anyway, right? We always went in. I remember all the people I worked with all pretended to be my friend. And then one day, like the company moved on, or one day it was time for me to move on. And suddenly I didn't have any friends anymore. And that kind of thing. It's happened multiple times now. I'm not that surprised by it. I mean, it's always a bummer. Like, you don't want people to be all fake with you, but it's part of the work thing. And now that fakeness is going to take on a whole new level, because essentially you don't want to touch any of your workers or any of the people you work with. So that's a whole new strangeness. And again, normally you could just be like, oh, I'm just a, anti-germy weirdo, like Howie Mandel. Right? And now it's like, oh no, everyone is anti-germy weirdos like Howard Mandel. Like we have big problems. So
now I must admit, I use my keys now. So when I go to an ATM or need to touch a keypad, I'll just use a key. Keys are usually in my pocket. I don't think it's too paranoid.
You're as bad as the people on TV are already trying to sell me. They're trying to sell me a little bronze or brass kind of a hook, a metal hook. And what they're saying, and again, it sounds crazy, but you're there already, is that, you can push the elevator keys, push the ATM keys. You can open door handles, so you can hook into the big door handles. One of the things that's always been like a pet peeve is when they designed these bathrooms in the 70s, a lot of them were designed with door handles that you have to touch on the way out. And we all know those are like the dirtiest door handles in the world. Like the worst ones you have to pull, like you have to make a complete grip to. The best ones you can push through, and then everyone tries to touch a different spot and all that nonsense. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to see more. Hopefully those things will be fixed. Maybe there'll be a new sanitary door. Maybe
three seashells.
This is why we finally get Star Trek doors. Think about it. Everyone's always, why do they have Star Trek doors? And really, because 2 stagehands were standing next to it, like pulling the doors open and close when the cast comes over. But no, maybe we need those doors everywhere. Star Trek doors. You don't touch them anymore. They're cleaner. I know at the grocery stores we have them, a lot of places like that, but maybe we need smaller, lighter versions for homes and offices and things like that. Sliding automatic doors everywhere.
Like, I can definitely see electronic, like phone controlled locks taking over. So, no longer having a key in a lot of places and using NFC. So, an app on your phone or whatever to get into your front door. I think that's kind of quite a cool idea. But they definitely need to sort like the toilet door thing out. There's probably so many germs that are spread just on toilet doors and handles where there's no automated thing. So I think we're going to see a massive like level up on sanitation, like in oil toilets and stuff like that. There'll be cool new gadgets, maybe a new Dyson hand air blower that like UV burns like the germs in the air or something. I don't know, with a non-cyclone vortex thing.
I'd like to see some
No bag.
some They Live glasses. Maybe you could see germs and see diseases, and your hands would be like red if they're clean, or blue if you washed them, or soap looks a different color, something like that. I don't even know if it's possible, but who knows? Computers, they can shade
You wouldn't want
things.
it to be permanent, because there's like there's like bugs everywhere. There's like
I think
a million
that, yeah.
viruses like in a I don't know, space of on the fingertip or something.
Well, one of the barely surviving ads on TV is the ad for that fucking thing that cleans your phone, and yeah, I think that could be a thing. You have to put your phone in a little sanitary box, like you put your keys in a sandy box. I mean, all these sanitizing stuff. I know we got some groceries, not enough, but we got some groceries for the first time in a long time, and it's very weird. You have to like try to sanitize them. You have to try to separate them. We don't know what to do. We're not used to doing this. We're not good at doing this. These kind of medical procedures are very precise. And if you're not good at them, you screw up and, your suit rips and it's outbreak and you got the disease and the monkey got you, so it happens pretty fast. But yeah, we're trying to do our best, trying to clean up the groceries. I know. And the bats, the monkeys and the bats, they're everywhere. They're talking about the Amish in the chat. The Amish are actually, well, I don't know if they're doing well in the virus, but the Amish are stitching up masks and they're donating the masks to the local community. The Amish are helping out. So I heard that recently. I haven't heard if it spread through their nice community or if they managed to bring back some horrible smallpox blankets while they were stitching up those masks. But we'll keep an eye out. We also know that it's unfortunately spread from Brazil into the rainforest there. At least one group of indigenous people is already infected with this thing. So
I was watching a documentary on smallpox yesterday, and I think it's obviously been eradicated, but it's still being kept, I believe, in two places. There's one in the US and one in Russia, I think. But yeah, in theory, someone could just sort of, someone created a smallpox virus, not smallpox, but they created a different, like cowpox or something like that, as just messing around, and that was years ago. So if they've still got those viruses, I'm sure they're under good lock and key, but someone could just whip out smallpox again, and that's a savage virus. So yeah, we've got to be careful. Hopefully there's going to be a lot more controls around these things, and I don't think it was released on purpose or anything like that, but I just think that it's going to be a catalyst for more controls, more checks and stuff like that on the viruses that we do have in captivity, to make sure that they don't get out. And actually there was someone I think it was in the 70s or something, no, late 80s, sorry, that had in the UK, they were testing, I think it was Halifax or something like that, and yeah, he let out smallpox and someone died of it, and he ended up getting hounded by the press, and eventually that professor sort of he ended it, unfortunately. But that was a catalyst for England to tighten the controls over viruses, and how.
Well, it's a lot like computer viruses, right? We don't want them, but we have to study them. We have to learn how they work so we can defeat them.
Yeah.
So then you have all these people that are keeping computer viruses on, floppy disks or on their computers or whatever. And it's the same thing where a dangerous virus could get out. Yet on the other, we have to investigate. But yeah, I do agree with everyone. I think it's super creepy that Wuhan, where this virus allegedly came from, happens to be where one of the level 4 chemical weapons warfare facilities is. The other one's in Winnipeg. There's other ones around. But yeah, it's really strange, and it would be great if they could be more transparent with that research. I know why they can't. These are all, we're like, it's it seems like real easy, and you're like, hey, it's a democracy.
Umbrella
Let's
Corp.
just tell everyone all the creepy zombie research we're doing, but then the enemy would know about the creepy zombie. I don't know, this whole enemy thing. If you really want to talk about the enemy, you should check out this great movie called The Trap. It's a documentary, and it's all about the 1980s and the Cold War, and how basically they put John Nash, who was a schizophrenic, in charge of our defense. And John Nash believed that everyone was going to attack him, and that the Soviets were always attacking him. So we acted like that, and then we created the very system that we didn't want, the very complicated system of some just never trusting anyone. You know, F you, buddy, is a big chapter in the book, and it talks about the prisoner's dilemma and just different reactions to it. And the reaction that the United States took helped amplify all of the negative aspects of the Cold War, all of the militarism, all of the weapons spending, all of that kind of thing. Whereas the Soviets, when they wanted more missiles, they got out some mirrors and they took a picture and they made people think that the one missile was 8 missiles. They were much more ad hoc and fake in their productions, whereas the U.S. saw these faked missiles, they saw these faked sites, and they became even more afraid. And they built many, many, many more real sites to match the fear of the fake sites. But let's go ahead and get started on everyone's favorite part of the show, the horrible, horrible news. Remember, you can always call us at 1-518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network. You can tell us how it's going in your neighborhood, if you've been hanging out with friends on Zoom. I was thinking about Zoom today, and maybe it'll be fixed with virtual reality, but it's still kind of a webcasting medium. One person kind of controls the floor. Maybe you can talk to them. Maybe 2 or 3 people can be in that conversation, but you don't really have that kind of side channel conversation where you're like, hey, I want to walk over and talk to just that person, or I want to talk to those 3 people. Maybe there's a zoom out level for Zoom. That's funny. But yeah, maybe there's a zoomed out view where you could see, you know, the conversations, and you could, you know, see them chat, and you could kind of hear them, like just a little, and maybe you hear something, you're like, you know, defense spending, and you're like, oh, I want to go to that conversation. Or, you know, you hear someone say, oh, you know, lottery winner, and you're, oh, that sounds good. Because there just doesn't have that kind of multi-layered aspect of real conversation, of real reality. And maybe VR will do this. I've heard the VR people, or Second Life, same thing, you know, moving an avatar around, giving you the physical space to then have this kind of multi-conversation. But I just think it's missing in the sound. You don't have that kind of layered bar feeling. Like when you go closer to somebody, the sound doesn't get louder. You go further, it doesn't get. So we'll see. I'm sure they're working on that, but that does seem to be missing. I think a lot of these Zoom, I don't know, call me in, tell me how your hangouts are going, but I think it would be one person grandstanding, and that would probably be me. I already grandstand enough. I already talk enough about the damn virus and whatever else is going on in this show, so I don't know that I need more hangouts to do that, but let me know. Here we go, the news. We talked yesterday about America using the placebo to treat the coronavirus. The placebo has not been tested. The placebo might work, and it's worth it to try placebo during this crisis. I just have a good feeling about it. I feel really good. We talked about this. Kyle says it's mainstream adoption that TravelX had to pay $2.3 million in Bitcoin to get its systems back. It kind of is. Mainstream adoption by hackers. Truckee in Lake California, Truckee in Lake Tahoe, near my old home in California, has had some trouble. They say because of residents who have a second home, they've now made Truckee a hotspot of COVID-19. People trying to get out of the cities, getting to that beautiful, wonderful countryside that we all dream about. Apparently they already have second homes. And they're just infecting everybody out there. They're ruining the whole rural country home, stay away from the virus theory. So again, just like in Alabama, it's flared up in Alabama. Yes, the virus affects all people. I'm sorry, even country people. Rest in peace, Dr. Abdul Chowdhury, who was 53 years old in UK, and he warned Boris Johnson that the frontline national health workers needed more personal protective equipment. Dr. Chowdhury died after being diagnosed with COVID-19. A very sad story to see the very people who did warn our politicians, the very doctor who warned China, die from the same disease that they warned about. This is part of the problem with having our doctors on the front line to fight diseases, but there's no other real way to do it. They just aren't as effective in the back as generals or anything like that. They kind of have to be down there.
So at the moment, there's, I think, 14 bus drivers that have also died from coronavirus. And as far as I'm aware, I think it's way more than the sort of the health people at the moment on the front line. So I think that there's sort of quite a bit of a protection that's needed, not just for the health workers, but for the people that are helping the health workers get to their jobs, the carers get to their jobs, that side of things. But yeah, it's a definitely a disproportionate number of bus drivers. So there's a lot of people where, they seem to have quite a significant role in society, when you do think about it, when push comes to shove. So it'll be interesting if pay is going to be reflected eventually after all this is blown over for people.
Well, you have to remember what they said about the 1918 pandemic as well as the problems of the 1880s. This led to the social revolutions of the 1920s. This led to unionism. This led to workers' rights. These crushes where people see what society's really about. Clearly, right now, we are dependent not only on doctors and nurses and police and fire, everything else, electricity, internet, but we're dependent on grocery store clerks. We're dependent on the guys that stock the shelves. And yes, those aren't the most complicated jobs. We could probably all learn to push the buttons. If we worked out and stretched and weren't so messed up, we could all lift boxes and stock shelves, right? We'd have to take a lot more ibuprofen or something. But we could do it, right? And that's why we pay those people so little, is because this is, capitalist society believes those people are interchangeable cogs. But the problem is they are interchangeable, but they're also, in a situation like this, and it'll be this way forever, very valuable interchangeable cogs. So now it really does get kind of religious. Like, you should give unto me that which you'd give to the least among us. Jesus said something like that before he was into money. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to give these people sick leave. We're going to have to pay these people more. There's definitely going to have to be hazard pay. I don't get it at all that these people are out there working, risking their lives without hazard pay. I know doctors and nurses do pretty well, but I don't think that supermarket clerks or guys that stock shelves do very well. And maybe that all has to change. Maybe, again, just these universal ideas, these values, these connections between us have to be amplified if we want to keep living in a society. The alternative, complete breakdown, chaos, that's possible. Like, it's not intended, not something you want to like go for, like chaos, but we could try it. We've screwed up before. Humanity has screwed up before. It was a funny thing. I watched a documentary about Rome and England and stuff like that while I was visiting Europe. And, they have different views in their documentaries, different kind of things, because the history is right there. And they were talking about running water and flush toilets. And when the Romans ran Britain and they had like big events, they had like a little mini Colosseum kind of a thing. They had a system where, these rocks, and there was like a stream, and the stream went through the rocks, and you went right on the rocks, and then it went to the stream. And it was like a flush toilet. And they had this for large gatherings so they could enjoy the bread and the circuses of the empire. And what's funny is after the Romans left, the Britons basically forgot this technology for 200 years. That's the funniest thing. I mean, I hear about this nonsense when I'm a kid, and you're like, oh, that's a joke or whatever. And yeah, they didn't, they always say they had 2-story houses and flush toilets, and you picture a house just like our house, right? No, but they did have complex structures like 2 stories, and clearly they understood at one time how to use water for a toilet, and then they forgot. So yes, we can go through a large period of chaos if we fail, if we don't want to work together, if we don't want to be on the same team. I often do a thought experiment, do the John Galt thing. How are you going to do it without other people? The power's gone, the internet's gone, the roads are gone. How are you going to get your products to market, even if they're the greatest products in the world? How are you going to interface with other companies if they don't want to work with anyone ever? I think we have a lot more to gain by working together than we do by being apart. Stay-at-home orders have swept across the country. Shoppers rushed to grocery stores and stocked up on staples like eggs. The spike in demand boosted egg prices, especially in California, and likely will for some time. It's also exposing the supply chain. Things that there are not enough of, there are just not enough of, and they're going to cost more. So we'll see how that goes. Sad farewell to Mort Drucker, of Mad Magazine. I don't know if you guys were big into Mad Magazine. It's one of those things everyone thinks it was biggest in their time period, but it's been big, for a long time, for 60 years. Sadly, I do think they stopped the print run of Mad a little while ago, but classic Mad artist somewhere over there. Maybe I'll do it on Big Book Day. I have a great giant book of Mad Magazine, 60 years of Mad Magazine humor. This is kind of a cartoon parody magazine, if you guys haven't seen it. They did parodies of like Seinfeld or movies, and they'd always draw little silly cartoons and stuff. So for the young adults, I guess, for the kids. Extreme inequality, callous companies, a frayed safety net. This nation was ailing long before the coronavirus reached its shores. It's time to turn the America we have into the America we need. And I've seen a lot of articles kind of this idea that it wasn't so good before, so we shouldn't just reset. We should try to use this casualty or this crisis to make things better. Similar to what I was saying about the grocery store clerks. That's going to have to change. And if you don't change it, then we're going to have one of those revolutionary cycles and everyone's going to lose a lot more stuff. It's one of those things, like we can refuse to share now, be forced to share later, give up a lot more stuff, or we could start sharing. It's up to you guys. I was watching comedians in cars getting coffee, and I was jealous of the coffee shop this time. Dan, what do you think about that? Usually I watch this show. Obviously, I'd want to hang out with Jerry Seinfeld. I'd want to hang out with any of the comedians. That would be amazing. Sometimes the cars are really good. He drove a Volkswagen Thing, a VW Thing. That was a pretty cool car. He had a Lamborghini the other day. I don't really care that much about cars, but usually I'd rather hang out with the comedians. But this time, Dan, all I wanted was a club sandwich. I needed a club sandwich, some French fries, maybe some stuff off the breakfast menu. I would just order everything. I haven't been to any diners in like 2 months or something now. No one's bringing me food. No one makes me food.
You must have delivery there, right?
They have delivery, but I haven't been doing it. I mean, I've watched the Outbreak movie. I watched the Contagion movie. I mean, like, all you're doing is rolling your dice on the old Contagion. You're like, how many times did you break the airlock? And they're like, oh, I broke the airlock 3 times a day, got my food delivered. And it's like, why'd you even bother staying home? Like, it's not, the game only works if you stay home. I mean, like, so, yeah, I don't think.
You're covering all corners, I think.
I don't want to, but again, I can't. This isn't like some joke thing where you're like, hey, give me a do-over. I didn't want to get infected this time. It's like, no, you got infected. You're infected. Like, you're infected. Like, it's over. So, no, that's why I like looking at all my pictures. I remember when I used to travel. We're using our imaginations. That's right. So, and that's why it's good to watch a show.
Reminiscing a lot with the pictures.
Well, anything
from previous tours.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I finally get a chance to look at them. Some of them I just haven't looked at. I mean, I was just so many museums and so many things, and sometimes I'm going pretty fast through the museums, and also even just going back to my old pictures from San Francisco. I had this whole crypto art show. I shot a bunch of pictures and a little video, and I figured out why I didn't make it into a video at the time. Well, you know how it is. We're always testing new equipment. We don't always have the best or most expensive equipment. But yes, at this time, I was testing out a microphone that plugged directly into my phone, which was great, but didn't have those little audio bars to let you know that it's working. So halfway through the point where I'm going around interviewing people, the microphone cable fell out slightly or something. And of course, I got no audio. So I'm going to work with it. I'm going to change it. I'm change part of it into a montage so it'll look like I'm interviewing people, but I'll play some music. But I could see how in the time period that would just break me. I would just be like, oh, F this. Like, I'm going to go back to work. And again, I was working at Purse at the time. I was really busy trying to get people to spend Bitcoin and save money. And I guess now they
do any more ships onlys.
I should.
Like Star Wars ships only.
It's tough to really find the right ideas, and it's actually pretty neat. There's I had some on a list that I probably would have done, But the idea got so popular, there's other people doing ships only movies now. This guy, Coptor Renegade, and he's gone through, he did like Deep Space Nine, all the ships, like season by season. I could see him going through. He's clearly just, clopping away at it like I did. And he did some other movies. He did like a Transformers one. And what's really neat is he puts parentheses, ships only, after the video, just like I did. So it's kind of like an homage. It's like part of the same series. And then there's another series someone's doing that's called Just the Ships. And I think that's very similar to my project. Yeah. So it's still going on. People are doing it. It's pretty neat, though. My Empire Strikes Back one has like 1.2 million views, which obviously I don't make a dime off that. If I had a dollar for every view, I'd have $1.2 million. But no, I don't even make a penny. So, but still, it's about the Star Wars. It's about the Star Trek. I wanted to see what it looked like. And really, back on videotape, I would kind of watch them that way. Star Trek movies are pretty boring. You want to just fast forward to the parts where the ships fly around and shoot stuff. That's the fun part. So we just get to watch that whenever we want now. Oh, well, back to this. Let's see. Coronavirus and climate change. I know everyone's super triggered in the chat. Greta Thunberg. Ooh, they're triggered. But I think this is, again, a really solid idea. I can only judge the ideas. And what she says here, a call for cathedral thinking, that we would have the courage to build something that would be for today's young and future generation. And one of the things I saw touring Europe was, of course, lots of cathedrals, lots of monuments, lots of grand statues. Some of them we can't even get rid of. The Nazis built these flak towers, big cement structures designed for artillery, designed for radar, and looking for ships and looking for tanks and planes and things. These flak towers with the solid cement, they just can't get rid of them. They would have to, dynamite each level. They'd have to blow them out. So they've left them up around Vienna and around other cities. In Vienna, they turned one into an aquarium. But still, these flak towers from the 40s are in their way cathedrals. They are undestroyable. They are monuments. We don't seem to do that anymore. We don't build anything that's not disposable. We're not thinking about the future. And part of the whole climate change thing is, and it's a lot of change and it's a lot of control. And in this chat, whenever you say control, they get all mad about force, and you're using force and you've broken all the rules at this point. But it does seem like, something's going to have to change to save the planet. We're going to have to go into a new way of thinking. And it's another one of those big shifts as we shift from this kind of endless capitalism where the Federal Reserve, we're always in debt. So we always have to grow. We have to make more money to pay off our debt. And then we borrow more debt, and then we're always in debt, and then we have to grow. So it's a growth economy. And that doesn't fit at all with conservation, right? Conservation, you're always trying to conserve. You're trying to spend less. You're trying to do less. You're trying to damage things less. Whereas growth, you don't care. You just grow. The only thing that matters is your growth level. And that's not compatible with building cathedrals or saving the next generation or any of these things. And again, it could be a noble thing. It could be like, what a great generation. We built this new world for the young, and they had a decent shot at it, and they could go out into the environment. Or we could just keep being reckless and destroy everything, and we can give them a pile of garbage, and they'll say, wow, what a terrible generation that gave us this pile of garbage. I
still would, a cathedral, it sounds cool, but I still would like a billionaire to just build a giant pyramid that's much bigger than one of the existing ones, just for the sheer hell of it. All the construction stuff, real nice, spending money, getting rid of disease, all good, as long as someone builds like a giant monolith that I can go see. So, all the cool stuff happened in the past, so I want to see a giant monolith. So
it'd also be nice if they did it with traditional equipment or even modern equipment, right? With a pyramid. We're not sure if they can. I think they did Stonehenge, right? And that's why they have that second Stonehenge, and they have all that kind of stuff. They're like, yeah, we built a test one, and we're pretty sure we could dig down into the earth, and then we could tip the things up, and then we could take the earth back down. And it's, kind of a trick. It's like an optical illusion. Like the dirt was holding it up for a long time before they removed all the dirt. And then once you removed all the dirt, it's like, look what we did. Whoa, how'd that happen? And, you work backwards. It's not that hard. But the pyramid, those big blocks, the kind of ramps they'd have to build, and again, it had to be ramps and scaffolding, or space aliens with like a laser thing, and they push it and they lift up the block and they put it over here, and then they had to leave, and then they never came back. Well, maybe they came back. They had UFOs on McLaughlin Group recently. They were calling us coast to coast in the chat, giving us the InfoWars jab. But I don't know. McLaughlin Group said there were UFOs. It was a pretty trustworthy source. The Navy says there are UFOs. Again, unidentified flying objects. That doesn't mean space aliens. The McLaughlin Group guys seem to think
because aliens.
They could have been from below the water, so they could be mer people, or they could be from the future, or they could be from the past. We don't know. It's always good to talk about space aliens, though. It brings in the phone calls. Now let's just keep going. This quote from a grocery worker interviewed on MSNBC News tonight got to me. I feel like essential stands for exhausted and expendable. So yes, we are going to have to take care of these people. They're the ones feeding you. I mean, I hate to remind everyone of Fight Club, but they had a pretty strong message there in Fight Club. We're the ones that watch you while you sleep. We're the ones that cook your breakfast. We're the ones that, clean your clothes. Like, these are the people, and it's been exposed that we don't take good care of them. Ecuador, a company that normally makes cardboard boxes to export Dole bananas, is now making cardboard coffins for victims of the pandemic. So there we go. Businesses, dual-use technology, getting ahead of it there. Again, that's just very dark and morbid.
Innovative. Yeah.
Let's see. Everyone says that the coronavirus is projected to kill as many people in a few weeks as the flu did in a particular nasty year. That would be 52 weeks. Even though we put the entire United States on lockdown to slow it down. And that's apparently now the rallying cry of the corona contrarians. So people are saying, yes, that it's not a bad enough virus to shut down for. But if we didn't shut down, wouldn't have been worse. So we'll have to see until we get more numbers, till we get more information. This debate is going to keep going. But it's very hard until we actually have numbers. If you just have I have a hunch. I have a theory that we shouldn't have shut down. The numbers really aren't there to support that or to not support that. We just need to wait for more numbers. In Las Vegas, coronavirus job losses could double those of the 2007 to 9 recession. Vegas usually has millions of tourists. Now it has absolutely zero. They're worried that people won't come back, although I hear they're booking a lot of conventions for May. So business people think the convention circuit's coming back. They say they're going to open the hotels perhaps one hotel at a time based upon demand. So MGM might slowly reopen theirs. Caesars might slowly reopen theirs. They say they're focusing on value casinos first. You always wonder where they get all the money to run the lights and clean the place and pay all the people. It's definitely from winners, right? Winners built this town. Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. You got to like this. The Chinese Professional Baseball League will have robot mannequins fill in as fans as games. And this actually isn't the first time that the Chinese have done this. They did have kind of a digitized seating section before. They've worked on different like kind of robots that hold signs, or little, robots are more like Daleks or more like R2-D2s sitting in the stands to give you that experience. And that's back when, you could attend a game. Now you can't attend a game. But still, I could see this working. I could see people paying a couple bucks to rent a robot. You get a certain view, just like your seat. You can push some buttons. You can make it cheer. You can make it boo. That sounds kind of fun. I mean, that's not quite the same as going to a ball game, but it could simulate a lot of the actions of it. Maybe someday the robots could play.
It sounds amazing, just being there and hearing them go, oh, no, boo, boo, boo. Like all these custom little messages. I think it'll put the baseball players off, probably.
It would be cool if they could sing in like chip tune or something, and they like did the like soccer songs, and they're like, oi, 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 but it was all like, digital sounds and, beep beeps and stuff. Hey, check out the Bitcoin halving. Check out these cool hats from @NoBitcoin, KNOW Bitcoin. Shout out to Brooke, Bitcoin mom. She got a bunch of halving hats for her family. Very cool. Bloomberg. Unaired footage from Trump's Celebrity Apprentice should be handed over to entrepreneurs who claim they were ripped off when Trump and his children repeatedly endorsed a troubled multi-level marketing company on the show. Interesting, huh? For a long time, people have been trying to get their hands on these Celebrity Apprentice as well as Normal Apprentice outtake tapes. A lot of people who were on the shows have said there was a lot of off-color type stuff, maybe some racist stuff, maybe some anti-women stuff, maybe just some overall negative stuff. Not that it matters now. Everyone knows the character of the man. But it would be interesting if these videos do come out, and it's funny to see them tied with a troubled multi-level marketing company. But you just have to remember the level these people used to be at. They're scamming at a whole nother level now. It's way bigger. So you got to work your way up, right? You got to start out in the minor leagues, like get up to the major leagues. You can't just go right to the top. You want to flex it out, work with it. Meanwhile, as far as reopening the country, Jim Acosta asked, "Don't you need an effective national testing system before reopening?" President Trump responded, "We want to have it, and we're going to see if we have it. Do you need it? No. Is it a nice thing to do? Yes. We're talking about 325 million people, and that's not going to happen, as you can imagine." I think he's wrong here. I think this is a mistake. I think the testing, we've shown again over and over, South Korea, they beat the virus because they tested it. In Iceland, they have detectives who are tracking down the virus who say, hey, did you have dinner with so-and-so? You might be infected. Did you have dinner with so-and-so? You might be infected. You track this thing individually back to its source. You cut off everyone that has it, and that's how you stop it. So testing is how you stop it. Testing is how you reopen the country. It seems like we're going to reopen the country blind and just see what happens. Woo! Reminds me of the great George Carlin. He has a bit about Gates, and he talks about all these different unsavory characters and how we're going to get them all in these big gated states that would be like prisons. And then in between the different fenced-off states, which of course are rectangular states to save the taxpayers' money, there would be these gates. And every month for about 7 seconds, they would open up these gates and let people from one population of prisoners go to another population of prisoners. And you would be amazed what's going to happen and what's going to go through these gates in those 7 seconds. And that's why that part of the show would be on pay-per-view. So I suppose the countries that have proper testing, the countries that have different kinds of governments, like South Korea and others, are going to be watching with absolute horror as the United States opens up without testing. I guess we'll see how it goes. There's the same thing.
The rumors of, I think, as Normsky's saying, the reinfection rumors are starting to come in as well.
And they're not just rumors. I mean, Bloomberg had a big article about the reinfection rate and that it's possible and all those. I mean, scientifically, we don't have massive studies yet, but yeah, what we do know about this thing, it doesn't look good. It looks like it might be like the flu or the common cold, where you can just get it again. And again, I mean, I'm pretty old and everything, but there are people, 20 years older than me, and that has got to freak them out. And the people 40 years older than me are already probably freaked out, and they've been through a lot, and being 80 and everything, it sucks. But I don't know. I don't know about the old people, if they're ever going to go outside again, if they're just going to stay inside. This is not the vacation retirement they were promised, right? It's a bad deal. But what can we do? Certainly not test it. No, we're definitely not going to test it. Let's see. Here we go. We lost Trump on message to the 16 million people who lost jobs. Now, this should be a good one. Everyone knows what's this like to lose a job. Dan, have you lost a job before?
I've been made redundant, but that I was happy with that because I got a payout.
That's yeah, you get unemployment that way. But you've
Yeah,
quit
but
jobs. You've moved on
yeah,
to other
change
jobs. Like
jobs.
this happens,
Yeah.
and people always say nice things to you. They're always like, "It'll
Mm.
be okay." Like the sun will come out tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of fish in the
There's
sea.
plenty more fish.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like part of being president is a bit like being like kind of like being queen, like in the British sense, where she goes out and makes a speech to make people feel better, right? Like things are really down, and it was a couple days ago. Things were really down in the UK, and the Queen came out and gave a speech, and we're going to be with our families again, and things are going to turn around. She said a lot of positive things. So, 16 million people. That's an unimaginable amount. Like we've already did the 3.3 million and the 6.6 million, and then now another 10. Let's see, like the empathy, right? We're looking for the empathy. This is empathizer in chief.
More than 16 million Americans who have lost their jobs in the last 3 weeks and fear that the economy won't just bounce back, like you said.
Well, I think the economy is going to do very well. Now, that's just my feeling. It's a strong feeling. I've had good, proper feelings about a lot of things over the years, and I think we're going to do well. We're doing it looks like we're at the lower end of the curve in terms of death, which is a terrible word, a terrible dark word that we've experienced like nobody's ever seen before in this country. I mean, we have numbers that are terrible, but when you look at the lower levels of 100, lower prediction levels of 100, 120,000 to 220,000, or if we did nothing, up to 2.2 million people, we're looking at a much lower level than the level of, I hope, than the level of 100,000. So we're going to see. We're going to have to. You can never do anything about the people that lost their loved ones and lost their friends, and I mean the great friendships. And I'm not sure a lot of people will ever be the same. But I think our country, from an economic standpoint, will end up being stronger than ever. We have tremendous stimulus. We have tremendous stimulus plans. We have things in the works that are going to really, I think, fire the country. I think that what's going to happen is we're going to have a big bounce rather than a small bounce.
All right, so we're going to have a big bounce, not a small bounce. You may have lost your job, but...
Well, maybe he's just, he's saying, look, it's not so bad because I did hear that Ivanka created 15 million jobs. So it's 10%, not bad at all, right?
10% of the entire jobs in the United States economy were created by Ivanka Trump. It happens to be true. But yeah, just I don't know, just so dark. I mean, he starts out with all the feelings about how he had good feelings about the market, and he has good feelings and all this kind of like faith, kind of religious language here about the faith in the markets and how it's going to be a great bounce and a big bounce. But there's never an attempt in that response, which is a long response. It's a minute and a half, where he says, hey, for the workers out there, it's going to be okay. Or we're going to extend unemployment insurance, or we're going to get a program to get you back to work, or we're going to open up the restaurants or something, or the small business loans or something, some kind of like, because they have done things. I mean, I don't know that they're going to work, but you could just, normally politicians just say, hey, we passed the small business loans, $250 million in small business loans, $1,200 stimulus checks. Whoopee. But, still, you'd focus on those. But instead, he just goes back to the economy, goes back to his feelings about it. And it seems like he really only has empathy for the markets. It seems like he really only has empathy for the business. We saw this a long time ago when the stock markets were going up. He was claiming it was because of him. Everyone was saying at the time, they're like, don't do that. Don't do that. If you claim it goes up because of you, it also goes down because of you. And then, of course, this time he says, no, it's not because of me. This guy's got it all. He's the best. Let's keep going. Balaji says, minimum necessary lockdown, daily feed of all-cause morality to see if death is really down, Sero surveys to see how many infected, FDA to stop blocking at-home tests, wearables, CT, PCR to monitor, identify green zones, let the healthy out first, and challenge trials to speed vaccines. Once again, Balaji for president. What's so shocking about this is that he could actually be in the administration. They were considering him for Health and Human Services. He went so far as to delete his entire Twitter account. It was gone. This guy said all kinds of great things about Bitcoin. I don't know if that's why he deleted it or just, for safety's sake. But yes, he was completely gone from the internet. He's back now, but he should probably be put in charge of something. This is getting ridiculous. Balaji also writes, much of the pre-virus economy was geared for leisure, travel, restaurants, bars, concerts, experience, and so on. But many of those companies are now bust. And for others, demand may have fallen to the point that they are no longer viable. Some airlines may be among them. And I heard a new phrase this morning. They were calling these zombie companies. Zombie companies, where there's no demand. Like right now, I mean, they used to fly, I don't know, let's say they used to fly 12 flights out of Las Vegas every day, and I'm sure it's more. Right now, they'd be flying like 2, right? And those 2 would be empty. So there's no reason to put a 3rd flight or a 4th flight. There's no reason to expand the number of flights that we're flying now. And because of that, no one wants to go anywhere. No one, the virus, all this stuff. I don't know if we should be saving airlines just cause, or especially cruise ships just cause. There's an interesting discussion on CNBC about this. And the guy basically argued that by saving these companies, you're screwing up capitalism. By letting these companies fail, because they don't really fail. What he explained is that it's not just like they disappear. The company goes into bankruptcy. Someone else comes in. Maybe they can run it. Maybe they get more investors after it's, went through the bankruptcy phase, and they come in and rescue it or save it or sell it to someone else for parts or something. Everything keeps going. Whereas if we have these bailouts and these artificial savings, that the companies just become zombies and pointless. And like last time, they just bought back their stock. Incidentally, stock buybacks legalized by Ronald Reagan. Yes, let's have a nice way to fuck the workers. Ronald Reagan also taught you that government is the problem. That's really helped disarm you as the corporations took over all around you. Yes, government was the problem for corporations. Yes, government regulations.
With the bailouts, is the US government going to be taking any equity stakes for bailing them out, or?
You'd think so, and it's not clear. We don't know for sure. The first round went out with nothing. Before the bailouts were launched, the CEO of Boeing famously crowed that he would not be giving the taxpayers a single share of Boeing stock. Boeing stock promptly went up after this, as the capitalists saw that he was, he's enough to take the money, but he's not enough to give you anything for it. So yeah, I mean, the most extreme proposals, obviously, from people on the left wing, like Elizabeth Warren, say things like workers should have a seat on the board. The U.S. government should get stock. Workers should participate in owning and running the company. But we all know that's only one side. So if anything, we're going to get half of that. And if we get half of that, wouldn't you prefer just a quarter? So maybe we'll get a quarter of that. We'll get a small share. But what they did last time is they paid back the money, and that made it all okay. We made a brand new pile of money to save the auto companies. And yeah, I think we charged a little bit of interest, right? But we were the only lender in the market. There was no one else these companies could have gone to. We could have written any deal we wanted. We could have made the CEO, not of Ford, but of maybe General Motors. We could have made him stand on his head every day in his office. Your new job is standing on your head. I'm sorry, it's in the contract. Oh, you don't want to get the loan from the United States government and the people? Oh, go somewhere else. Is Bank of America got any money? Citibank, Chase? Oh, all the banks won't bail you out, so you're going to the taxpayer, the lender of last resort, and you're saying, you're not going to give us any shares. You're not going to give us a seat on the board. We're not going to get to control these companies. Oh, you said you won't buy back your stocks this time. Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. That's amazing. You're actually going to invest in the company, in the hiring of people, in the building of things, what you actually do, rather than just buying back pieces of yourself so that you're more valuable, so you make more money now. They made all this money during this period, and apparently the plan is just to keep it. Normally, you make the money during those up periods so you can live through the down periods. But what we're seeing now in demonstration live every day with these bailouts is that you make the money during the up periods, then you live off the government during the down periods, then you make the money again during the up periods. And the government, which again means the people, that's the people's account. That's, taxes are also revenue. That's how the government raises money. That's how they do programs. That's how they do anything, military, space, roads, health, any of these things, revenue. Taxes are revenue. If companies paid taxes, the government would have revenue. If the government had revenue from the companies, maybe we wouldn't even need the income tax, right? If we didn't have the Federal Reserve, if we went back to when we didn't have the income tax, when this country started. Maybe if we taxed the corporations, we wouldn't need to tax the people, at least directly. We could have other taxes, sales taxes and luxury taxes. I don't know. There's a lot of taxes we can have. And there's a lot of taxes that we can't have because all taxes are bad, man. Starve the government. Let everyone die. Next time there's a pandemic, I hope they just don't do anything. Hope they just let everyone die. Yeah. Fuck people. Yeah. Speaking of fuck people, look at the Federal Reserve.
There is an infinite amount
We're
of
going to
cash
print
in the
all
Federal
that
Reserve.
money. Look at that straight line up there at the end. Like this other line up here is pretty bad, but then it keeps going up, and it keeps going up. They said the Federal Reserve balance sheet could double again from here, reaching USD $12 trillion. Remember when conservatives used to care about the national debt? Remember in the 80s and the early 90s and W. Bush or H.W. Bush and Reagan used to bring up that chart, the national debt chart, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, there's so much debt. Oh, well.
There is
Oh,
an
no.
infinite amount of cash
So
in
they
the
just-
Federal Reserve.
They're just going to keep
Only
printing.
just getting started.
They're just going to keep printing it. It's neat. Mitch McConnell says 72% of Americans want vote-in mail-in voting. But if we let them vote on mail, that will infringe on the rights of the other 28% who want to keep the 72% from voting at all. It's tyranny. There's another article from a psychiatrist, Dr. Lance Dodds, who warns that Donald Trump is a sociopath, a human predator who would be in prison if he were not born into money. Trump is exactly the wrong person to be leading America during the coronavirus crisis. And again, these are the same psychiatrists who united together with, I think, 30 or maybe 60 other psychiatrists to make a book about all the potential mental problems with Trump that seem to be getting worse as he ages. It's almost as if the brain kind of starts to melt down at a certain point. And maybe it wasn't even that great a brain to begin with. Joe Biden says, I can't believe I have to say this, but we should be expanding the number of testing sites and surging the number of tests, not reducing them. Testing is a key to finding a way out of this crisis. So there you go. You can now stand on two sides. Trump doesn't want to test, and he wants to reopen the country quickly. Biden wants to test. You guys can choose. It's up to you. And I think we're going to get a fun chance to try it out either way. But
I'm
yes,
Joe Biden, and I forgot this message.
there's no difference between the two candidates. The two candidates are exactly the same. One of them wants testing. One of them doesn't want testing. It's up to you which one you want to choose.
What's the fascination though with and this isn't an ageist thing at all, but what is the fascination with like electing people that are so old that you'd never usually see them working? Well, I don't. No, it's a genuine like. What's I don't get it. I don't get it. Surely you want someone who's
Well, I mean, let's try to explore it. So one option is definitely experience. The older people probably have more experience because they're old. So if you're going to, like, for example, Bernie Sanders has been in the Congress for like 50 years, right? There's only one way to do that. You have to be at least, 20 or 30 when you're elected, and 50 years, you have to be 80 to get 50 years of experience in Congress. You have to be like very old. So experience is one. I think another one is maybe no one wants to run at all. Like, it's terrible to run for politics. Like, they ruin all your stuff. They go back through all your quotes. They go to all your people you ever talked to, ever had contact. I mean, no one really wants their life to be destroyed. I mean, look at, certainly like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or even Oprah, right? Oprah is this incredible power woman. She does all the things. She does whatever she wants. But she won't touch this, right? She doesn't want to be president. Howard Stern ran for governor, dropped out because he didn't want to give up his tax returns. He didn't want to give up his privacy. He wanted to maintain his privacy. He didn't know at the time there was an option. You could just ignore it. We found that out later. But yeah, I think age, experience, not wanting to be it. When younger people run, we generally shit on them. Like, look at Pete Buttigieg, the guy, he went to war. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He's a mayor. I don't care he's a mayor, but it's a relatively good sized city. He's an administrator of some kind. He has administrator things. So he's perfectly qualified and talented. They struck him hard for being young every time. They banged that bell. Bill Clinton was too young to be president. He was too irresponsible. I mean, all these kind of things. And he did fine, relatively fine. I think it's that. And then, I don't know. I mean, they tried to get, it's funny. Bernie was one of the oldest guys, but he had the youngest ideas, right? All the young people were like free college, free healthcare, free basic. He didn't say basic income, but you know, so maybe the older guys have the best ideas. I don't know. I also think it's just a club, kind of a club of these people who are interested in public service or whatever it is, public / corporate service.
Exotic Joe. I'd vote for Joe if I was an American.
Joe Exotic.
Yeah, Joe Exotic. Yeah.
Do you think that Trump knew him the other day because of the presidential campaign? Because there's a kind of a point where he's like, because they say Tiger King and it doesn't ring, and then somebody else says Joe Exotic, and Trump like repeats it twice. He's like, Joe Exotic, Joe Exotic, Joe Exotic. And I think it might be because somebody told him at one point during the election, they're like, hey, you know, this idiot in Florida is running against you. Here's a funny clip. And maybe they played him the little thing. I'm Joe Exotic. I got tigers. I'm running for president. I don't know what he said. But yeah, I think maybe he knew about him, or maybe he just thought the word exotic. That's good marketing. I wish my name was Joe Exotic.
I like this idea.
Johnny Penis. Johnny Penis. That's a good name. Johnny Penis fucks. Joe Exotic. Sexy man. Fucks well.
You know, I understand things so much, I overstand them.
I'm getting really good at this understanding television thing. Maybe I should be a television producer. I'm like a doctor of television. Let's see. I want to switch back to the cameras. There it is. All right, more news. That's what everyone wants. All right, open broadcasters running way behind. This is an impressive move. You gotta like this if you hate human beings and you're like, I wish we could find a way to kill more human beings. The Trump administration is seeking to block the International Monetary Fund from providing a $5 billion emergency loan to Iran for assistance in combating the coronavirus pandemic. So yes, we have problems with Iran. Yes, foreign policy and all those things. But once again, here's a chance for us to be nice. Here's a chance to save thousands, tens of thousands of the Iranian people, most of whom probably don't approve of their government, probably aren't in the day-to-day actions of it, probably aren't too involved in the things that the U.S. government allegedly doesn't like about Iran, so on and so forth. But we aren't that kind of people. We aren't the good kind of people that just help people when they're in need. We're like, what if they take that loan and make weapons? I'm sure is what we're saying. Or just in general, that we were punishing them before, so we're going to keep punishing them, even if it costs them thousands and tens of thousands of lives. What do you think, Dan? Anything on this?
Well, I think that they have been kind of caught before using, aid money for nuclear sort of progression.
Yeah, but surely we could put controls on the money.
At the same time, the people aren't the people that are doing it. It's just like the same situation with, it's not Chinese people that have were misreporting coronavirus. It's the CCP that are doing it. It's not the people. It's the people. It's the people in control of the people. So, I think it's bad withholding aid. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe this is another opportunity for Bitcoin to kind of circumvent the current process and the sanctions.
Well, and I do, I understand the value of sanctions during normal times, and certainly sanctions do always cause humanitarian suffering. The people were starving before, no doubt, and we were trying to muscle them to get whatever we want in foreign policy, that kind of thing. But yes, it does seem like we could take a break from that and say, oh, well, normally we wouldn't let this go through, but, there's kind of a crisis, and we've been printing, trillions of dollars here, and you only want 5 billion. I mean, this is only going to save, 500,000 people. I mean, it's not that much money. It's not like they're going to save all their people. I'm sure people are still going to die from coronavirus in Iran. Like, I'm sure that it's not like they're going to get it better than us, so. Here we go. Joe Rogan on Andrew Yang. Hey, let's play it. A positive clip for once.
Weird time.
Yeah.
It's a really weird time.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish we could just rerun the whole thing, because some of the ideas, like Andrew Yang's ideas with universal basic income.
Yes.
That's
obviously he's right. Look,
Yeah.
what he said about automation now applies to this virus. Like,
This virus,
there's people that need money.
There you go. What he said about automation now applies to this virus. If we had universal basic income, if we had universal health care, the economy wouldn't be so affected by this virus. Now, really, going back to the Federal Reserve, the thing that they promised us a long time ago is less boom and bust cycles of the economy. The economy used to go way up, and then it would go way down, and then it would go way up, and then it would go way down. And sure, some people made money off this, but a lot of people got wrecked, right? So what they said with the Federal Reserve is maybe, and again, it didn't really work, but this was the idea, just maybe we could just make it go in the middle, right? It still goes up and down, but it doesn't go way up and it doesn't go way down. It just stays in the middle, up and down, middle, up and down. And that made it better. That's the idea. If you think about basic income, and if you think about universal health care, what we're really saying is during the cycle of the next pandemic, we want the economy to go down less. We are being greedy, right? We want people to be able to keep getting paid, which means they'll keep paying their landlords, greedy rich people, right? Then they'll keep paying their credit cards, greedy rich people, and everything will keep going, even if we have to shut down for a couple months again because of this virus or the next virus. These people will also keep getting health care. They'll keep being in contact with their doctors and their systems. We can tell them where to go. We can give them information about the next virus. We can help get them the cure, which can reopen the economy faster. So this is one of those big mind benders you're going to have to wrap your minds around, but being good to people, giving people sick pay, jobs, hazard pay, safety, security, job security, the ability to change jobs because you're not tied to the healthcare. It actually benefits you in the end. I know. There's a lot of like numbers and things in between here and there, but it actually benefits you in the end. It's shocking. We're going to keep going through this and seeing how it goes. What will Vegas casinos look like after Vegas comes online? Well, there's going to be a lot more room. They say they're spreading out all of the slot machines right now, so they're not going to be all bunched up next to each other. So that might be kind of nice. Maybe you don't have to sit next to the 80-year-old lady who's chain smoking with her oxygen machine. They also say the buffets are gone, at least in the major casinos. I'm hoping maybe some of the minors will go with it, but
No.
well,
Buffet's good.
again,
Go
I feel
away.
the same, Dan. I want to go, and I miss the idea. But then if you really think about it, what we're really talking about is a whole bunch of food that's all shared by everyone that could all get infected. It's like a
Yeah, but
shared...
this happens once in a blue moon. Like we can't lose buffets and stuff because of.
They've already closed the
Oh,
one at the
man.
Treasure Island. They've already closed the one at the Golden Nugget. People
Santa
don't
Fe?
want to eat weird food out of a vat anymore. It was already one of my
Oh.
goals, like never eat Chinese food out of a vat, pre-prepared Chinese food that just sits there. That's kind of all of it, though. But yes, buffets are toast. They say the concerts and the shows are probably going to be the last thing to reopen. No one wants to sit next to anyone else anymore. I don't know if they're going to space people out or what. But yes, it's going to be a very different Las Vegas. It's going to be very different sporting events, concerts, bars. The world is different now. Like I told you guys, the Overton window has moved. What was previously considered completely unacceptable is now acceptable. Dr. Bitcoin writes, he says, we need more Bitcoin gifts to match all the great memes. Orange coin good, number go up. Bitcoin fixes this, stacking sats and hodl. So get to work, GIF animators. Here's your chance to make a cool Bitcoin GIF after one of these memes. Something to do. during our off time here. This is getting pretty crisisy. The Postmaster General said the Postal Service will collapse without urgent intervention, and it will happen soon. They've pleaded with the White House to help. Donald Trump has personally directed his staff not to do so. Postal Service is actually absolutely vital, even with mail down 30%, could be down 50% by the end of June. This is how we deliver important documents. This is how we deliver contracts. This is how we're going to vote without having to go outside in November. So it is a major crisis for the United States to let the mail system go. This is a national resource. This is similar to roads. I don't know why they not want to do this. The post office is it's not quite a government organization. It's not quite a private corporation. It's kind of a mix between the two. So
it's a difficult one though, because they have to cover every route, right? It's like the same with the UK. It's so like, you've got DHL, for example, that doesn't need to cover everywhere. So their costs are a lot less because they don't have to have every postman pack going out, to the ends of the earth. Whereas in the UK, and I'm sure it's similar in the US, you've got to have every single property covered. And so their profit margins are a lot more, they're a lot thinner compared to the other companies that can just sort of do the priority areas or whatever.
And it's a lot more like a national service. It's more like water or power or garbage or utilities. You need the mail. In fact, you need the mail so you can pay all of those other services. Yes, we do a lot of things online, but you still get things through the mail. It's still worth having. And again, the darkest and most creepy reason to kill the mail system is so that we couldn't use it for vote by mail. If you kill the mail system, and again, how about we just use UPS that day? We have other options, but yes, it would be a creepy backdoor way to killing vote by mail, to just kill the Postal Service. It's a shocking idea. This is a great picture. Imagine if someone showed you this picture 6 months ago and asked you to figure out what happened. We can see London. It looks almost empty. Still kind of comically London with the double-decker buses. But there's the Queen on the big screen, and she says, "We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again." Okay, so what's happening, Dan? Go.
The Queen is...
She's going back to her home planet. You know it. Look at those words. Yeah. We will meet again. Very clearly, the Queen wearing alien green is going home. And everyone is so shocked they all stayed inside. Everyone's like, the Queen's going home. Aliens are coming to rule us. Stay inside. Await the aliens. It's like Casablanca, right? You wore blue. The Germans wore gray. The aliens wore gray.
Was she quoting Aubrey Hepburn as well? Is that right?
I don't know. I think she's just saying a nice message to the people that, we'll be with our friends and we'll be with our things. It's just, in a way, I could see it as an alien interpretation. It's also, she could have moved. Other royals moved to Canada and then on to Los Angeles. So maybe the Queen is getting out of the UK. Maybe everyone is getting out. Like the island itself is just no good anymore, and they just left all these cars here. I don't know. It's a fun picture because 6 months ago, there was no virus. There's none of this. You would have no idea what that strange picture is. Noam Chomsky, a legendary linguist, author of Manufacturing Consent, writes, "There's no profit in preventing a future catastrophe." And this is the real problem. This is, as Chomsky says, ventilator shortage exposes the cruelty of neoliberal capitalism and the idea that the market can just solve all of your problems. Here we finally have found, in very clear, understandable reality daylight, a problem that the market can't solve. Chomsky goes again over the ventilator example. The United States government formed a public-private partnership with a ventilator company. They were going to crank out tons of ventilators. They were going to store them in the stockpiles, and they were going to make them very cheaply. However, the ventilator company was bought by a larger ventilator company who sabotaged the contract and later backed out, saying that there wasn't enough profit in the contract. They had to sabotage it. They had to destroy it because If the smaller ventilator company had built cheaper ventilators, it would have put the bigger company out of business. So once again, that's how they stopped us from having enough ventilators. Government had the plans. People knew about it. People tried to act. People smarter than you. And they were blocked by people greedier than them. These public-private partnerships can't go on. From now on, the government's just going to have to build its own ventilators. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And yes, there's no profit in preventing a future catastrophe. Animal Crossing has been banned in China. They've banned all merchandise from the game. They've banned all consoles branded after the game. Pretty basic reason. Dan, do you want to guess why?
They thought they could get coronavirus.
No, it's the standard thing. You can put up like little signs in the game.
It looks like Winnie the Pooh.
No, it's a shared online game. It's a massive online multiplayer game. And you can put up like little signs, with your own message on it. And of course, people quickly figured out you could have messages critical of the Chinese government, which they then figured out that you could have, and they shut down the whole game. We don't know if there's going to be a special censored Chinese version of the game. It's a very lucrative market, as South Park brutally discussed earlier this year. And they might make a censored Chinese version. Even now, the people who were playing the game were playing it illegally. They'd imported it from other countries and so on. So. But I like that I like the broadness of the ban. I like the way that they're like, even the image of the raccoon is dangerous, right? The Animal Crossing raccoon has led you to freedom of speech, and you cannot have even the smallest freedom of speech. Balaji writes, bailouts are bad for several reasons. Number one, demand has fallen off a cliff. Many airlines are zombie companies. Number two, monies are politically allocated, not directly fighting the virus. Number three, it's an upward redistribution of wealth. Number four, there's no end to the printing until destructive inflation.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
There really is.
Oh, yeah.
Best case for the COVID is that it's more infectious than we think. It's been spreading really well, but maybe not killing enough. So everyone's hoping that they already have it and that it's already spread through the population, and that, again, this would be one of those hopeful things, right? I hope it's true, right? But it might not be true. But yeah, they hope everyone's already had it. Then we can just relax, right? The bigger the denominator, the more people caught the virus without realizing it. The more people that caught it without realizing it, the less severe the disease looks, and the faster we'll get through its brutality and emerge into a strange post-pandemic future. Oh boy, looking forward to that. Strange post-pandemic future.
I do think it spread a lot farther than we thought. So based on a few kind of things like the testing that came out of Italy with people giving blood, having the antibody. So yeah, I don't know. I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic too. I'm trying to get an image here from the Naked Gun movies. Damn it, it's not loading. Damn.
Oh, which one? The one where they're wearing the condoms?
Yeah, the giant full body condoms.
I've got that.
I don't know. Here, let me give you this. I can't get the darn page to load, but it's there on Google Images, so we can just enjoy it there for people that haven't seen Naked Gun. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there. Look, Google's even got a heart on their thing right now. There's going to be some romance in the future. It's going to look like this. Full body plastic condom suits. This is awful. No one wants this. This is bad. But again, otherwise we're going to have that VR thing. Like, you mean you actually touch people? Oh, gross. Demolition Man. We got to watch Demolition Man again. Such a great movie. And I've been a fan a long time, but yeah, now it's become even more true. This is a great essay, and now I really want to check out Camus' The Plague and Coronavirus. He talks about how he was looking for kind of the theme to his next book, and he actually had started to disagree with his previous books. He didn't think that there was a value in the absurd, that pointing out the absurdity of things was not necessarily useful. And in this book, he talks about the plague, and he uses the plague as a metaphor for essentially Nazis, the brown plague. was what they had, and it rolled through and it changed their society and it changed everything. And it's a good metaphor to understand this plague, and also a good time to read Camus. I've read The Myth of Sisyphus. It's good stuff. Simply put, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Sisyphus famously pushes a rock up the hill. When he gets to the top, the rock rolls back down. He goes back up and rolls the rock up again. What we have to imagine, according to Camus, is that Sisyphus is happy, that the ability and the act of pushing the rock up the hill is satisfying, even if the ending is not. The rock rolls back down. You have to repeat your task. Satisfaction, just enjoyment in basic things.
I do wonder every now and then whether when I'm throwing the ball for Dave Growl, if he actually likes the ball being thrown, or if he's actually thinking, "Oh shit, he's missed, he's dropped his ball," and he runs and get it back. So he thinks he's in this perpetuous Sisyphus thing where he's pushing my boulder back up the hill by bringing my ball back. But hopefully he's not. Hopefully he's just generally happy.
And I think that's it. I think that the dog would act like Camus would want us to, that the dog just appreciates chasing the ball. The dog doesn't think, oh no, I got to chase that damn ball again. And again, this is another, maybe a wish for a smaller intellect, right? If only I was dumber than myself, I could just enjoy things, right? That the true liberated people are the dumb, and that you envy them, and that actually thinking and having this brain is a big pain in the ass. And, or actually, that's funny, a pain in the birth canal, because having large brains on humans was actually an evolutionary feature and a function, and a bit of a disaster for a while there. It didn't work that well. Eventually, humans adapted something about the way women's hips and the pelvis opens, that it can allow a larger head to come out, essentially a larger brain. Oh, here we go. We've got some distraction for you. Here's some pre-pandemic pinball. I think, Dan, you might have even been with me when I shot these pictures. They're a little old. Here's Creature from the Black Lagoon. This is a great game, especially this one here. You can see they've fixed the lighting. So one of the things they're doing on old pinball tables is going through with modern LED lights, which are much better than old incandescent bulbs, and replacing
the
the
little
lights.
Screens.
Yep, and the little screen and the lights on the playfield here are very bright and very new. So this is an old pinball game, but they've made it modern. Here's the X-Files pinball game. I think I'm using the fisheye lens here, which I really like. It brings in Starship Troopers and GoldenEye. The tables next to us, we could see those as well as having a nice view of the playfield if you zoom in. Here's Arabian Nights, classic pinball game. You can see Bugs Bunny and Space Shuttle on the side. And finally, Theater of Magic with Wipeout. And I don't know that other one. Looks like maybe a baseball game or something. But there's some classic little pinball from Las Vegas, the Pinball Arcade, which used to be really easy to visit. Now it's a little harder.
Yeah.
Haven't been out in a while. But that was a good palate cleanser, right? That cleaned you right up. You're feeling better. Let's keep going. What else have we got? Google is rebranding Hangouts chat as just Google Chat. As Matthew Green writes, if God really has 9 billion names, Google has used at least 10% of them just for names on its video conferencing product. And they do keep changing the name and changing their system. They just can't seem to get it right over there. And they killed the product that I used to use, Google Hangouts, which used to let you broadcast on YouTube. I thought it was really neat. But yeah, they gave that up to Zoom, and now Zoom's a giant company. So a great idea, Google. Now they're just going to have to buy Zoom at some point. More distractions. I was scrolling randomly through my photos, looking for something to share, and it landed on this. This is St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, Ireland. Obviously, 2019, last year. I don't go anywhere anymore. The skull cast and death mask belong to famous satirist Jonathan Swift, who was a deacon at the church. So kind of morbid, but kind of neat. Jonathan Swift, great author. Gulliver's Travels, which again is just a big political metaphor for his times. He went to all these different cultures, imaginary cultures, and then he just kind of satirized his own time. And of course, my favorite, Swift F's essay is a modest proposal, in which he says that the poor should simply sell their babies as delicacies to be eaten by the rich. And he keeps that up. He's very serious about it. He goes through all the numbers, how much money they could make, how they'd have less attachment after they did it a few times, and how the rich could be enticed to put a high price on the babies of the poor. Jonathan Swift. Great stuff. And also, I was in Ireland. I took this picture that actually looks like the wallpaper. But yeah, I used to have computer wallpaper that looked like this. I remember it might even been Windows 3.1 or something. But yeah, it looked like this. And now I've actually been there. So how cool is that? That's the Trinity Library in Dublin, Ireland. It's in the college there, Trinity College. Amazon's other streaming platform, Twitch, has seen a 31% growth in viewership, with total hours jumping from 33 million to 43 million. So people are streaming more. Amazon, YouTube, Netflix. The reason that these platforms are not crashing, they're not going fail well, is largely because of cloud infrastructure. We made a lot of fun of it. The cloud is someone else's computer. But really, Amazon Web Services, AWS, allows these companies to just roll out new virtual servers to meet demand. This is also why Zoom is still up. I think there's an article we'll get to soon. I agree strongly with Dr. Samantha Monto. She says, disasters aren't acts of God, and emergency managers aren't prophets. Calling risk assessments prophetic implies on some divine insight when it's really science. Not listening to scientists is what keeps getting us into these messes. As it says here, NPR, in a remarkably prophetic report last summer, FEMA accurately predicted that a nationwide pandemic would result in a shortage of medical supplies, hospitals would be overwhelmed, and the economy would shut down. Again, she's nailing it here. It's not prophetic. It's not that they accurately predicted it because of prophecy. They didn't divine it with a divining rod. They didn't bring out any fates or any kind of potions or magic. They looked at the data and they analyzed the data to get their conclusions. It's how science works, right? We keep not understanding this. There's this whole anti-expert culture. There's all these people that believe that experts are stupid and they just went to school and wasted their time. And it's fun. We can do that. We can say that about like writing or creative writing or poetry or whatever. Like, you're not an expert. No one's an expert. But when it comes to science, when it comes to building a nuclear reactor, when it comes to dealing with a pandemic, maybe we should listen to the experts. Maybe next time, experts, right? Not just having to call them prophetic, months later. Experts. There's a palette cleanser. Here's some more cool pictures of Dublin. This is St. Stephen's Green. It's like a little park in the middle of Dublin. It's also, I think, where the Grateful Dead song came from, St. Stephen's. And also they fought. They fought here. I read some of the plaques. They said they had set up like sandbags and they had riflemen and they were fighting in the streets of Dublin. So this park was also a battlefield. So that's pretty interesting. Here's O'Donoghue's, or O'Donohue's, something like that. They called it O'Donegal's. You've got to go to O'Donegal's. I think that's how you say it. And it's a bar, and everyone's in the street with the blue hats because they just finished running the marathon. So this is obviously before social distancing and all that, before everyone freaks out. This is a Greek Orthodox church. You can see the columns in the front, the Ionic columns. It looks like a Greek temple because it's designed to look like a Greek temple. So, but just a nice photograph. I just picked it because it looked nice. And there I am with James Joyce, the statue in Ireland. So pretty fun. There is also a statue from Birmingham, England, where I went after Ireland. This is Admiral Nelson, the famous Battle of Trafalgar. He fought Napoleon during the 1812 and Napoleonic Wars. And
they don't like him anymore.
They don't like him?
People, yeah, people did the whole in the US the pulling down the statue thing. I think he had a few slaves, so everyone.
He was shot. He was shot on the ship. He died during the battle. Gave up his life for the country. A lot of people had slaves.
Yeah.
I don't know. This on this statue, they had a little plaque nearby. They said the people of Birmingham had donated the money to build this statue, and they donated it very quickly in like 24 hours. They were psyched to get it. They were kind of bragging that this is the only statue in England of Nelson that was made with donations of the people. Kind of, saying that maybe it's better than the one in Trafalgar Square in London, something like that. I do like it. I think it's a fine statue. It's got real agency and action to it. You can see he's got a boat behind him, maybe even a little Christ-like leaning on this pier here. I almost thought the top was maybe metal or something, but it looks more like rust or damage. Probably the water melting the statue down onto the base, something like that. It's been there a long time. But yeah, I think it's good work. Put the man aside, I like the statue. But yes. Obviously, I'm posting old photos again, consistent with post-pandemic world practices. I've been clearly labeling and dating the photos as old, but still, I'm not going outside. Fuck the virus. I'm telling you about it. So, also I had this big thread about the Postal Service, not necessarily because they're going out of business, but because of this great song by the band or perhaps Project Postal Service. This project is called the Postal Service because the two guys who did it would send the tapes back and forth through the mail. So the mail can even help make music. It's amazing. You can make music. You can make movies. I'll bet people made video games sending stuff through the mail. It's much more than just mail. And Amazon's also shut down they put on pause the Amazon delivery service. So they're back to using FedEx and UPS again. But anyway, the Postal Service has this great song called We Will Become Silhouettes. And one of the lyrics says, I've got a cupboard with cans of food, filtered water, and pictures of you. And I'm not coming out until this is all over. And as I talk, the song's really about nuclear war, and there's radiation that exists outside, as the song says. It'll make their cells dividing at alarming rates, till our skin simply cannot hold all our insides in, and that's when we'll explode. And it won't be a pretty sight. And then, of course, we will become silhouettes when our bodies finally go. That has a little bit, to me, of Hiroshima or Nagasaki, where the flash of the nuclear bomb actually turned people into silhouettes, shadows on the wall. But there's still, even if it's about a post-nuclear war, not a pandemic, there's something triumphant about the opening lines. I've got a cupboard with cans of food, filtered water, and pictures of you. I'm not coming out until this is all over. He seems kind of strong for a bunker man. He's got the water, right? He's got food. He can live. He's got pictures of you. He's got romance, not quite romance. And it's good enough, right? He's not coming out till this is all over. I thought it was pretty good. And then the Postal Service toured only once in 2013, and I was fortunate enough to be there. And if you go on Twitter, you can check out my video of the Postal Service band. But if we play it here, they'll surely take our ad rights. Not that it matters. We get like 50 cents a show anyway, but it's something about I don't even think I monetized this one. I was like, forget it. They flag everything with coronavirus in it anyway. So which again, how can you not talk about it? You're just being inauthentic. New York City mayor confirms they are now burying many COVID-19 corpses in mass graves on Hart Island. Today alone, there were 40 coffins. The bodies are wrapped in body bags placed in pine boxes with their names scrawled on top. Source, New York Post, but you can see the pictures. This is the same thing that we saw in Iran a couple of months ago, and everyone ignored it, and they shrugged it off, and they said, wow, Iran's having a bad time. Maybe we should cut off aid to them and make sure they don't get any money. Maybe we can accelerate that. But now it's happening here too. We're also seeing the bodies seem to be stacked about 3 high in these mass graves. I had a tweet. I tried to find it. I put it out a couple months ago where I said that they will call the mass graves of the COVID bodies Trumps. They'll say, oh, there's Trumps over there, or oh, there's another pile of Trumps. And people are already saying, yes, hashtag Hashtag Trump burial pits. We are so tired of winning. We're burying people, stacks of 3 of them, in pine boxes in New York, in the U.S. So yeah, maybe we should have reopened. We could have had bigger mass graves. My only regret is that we didn't kill more Americans with this virus. If only we had if only we could reopen sooner, we could have larger mass graves. Nobody has larger mass graves than America. You're going to be so tired of winning by the time this is over. You're going to be want to put in a mass grave. You're going to be like, that sounds like a fucking vacation from all this winning. 72% of Americans want mail-in voting, but Mitch McConnell refuses to let that happen for fear that our democracy will actually function like a democracy. That's the reason. Yes, vote-in mailing allows more people to vote, which is disastrous to the Republicans. We're not really having a debate of ideas. We're having a debate of who's allowed to vote. Chris Hayes says the same thing. Pandemic strengthens the case for universal basic income. You know that. I know that. American people know that. Authoritarians have 6 classic moves. Trump's response to the COVID virus uses all of them. But he's actually more of an incompetent, foolish authoritarian. But as it says here, that doesn't make him any less of a threat. Here we go. Matt Gaetz is a moron. We all remember Representative Matt Gaetz. He famously wore a gas mask to the Capitol. He was sitting in the House of Representatives with his gas mask on during the early stages of the coronavirus. He was, of course, making fun of it, acting like it was a joke. Oh, it was funny at the time. All the conservative stations played it. They all had super fun with their moron in a gas mask. But now it's gone back on him, and he's trying to change what it meant. Let's watch. This is pretty fun.
I find it rich that Congressman Gaetz is talking about politicizing this after the stunt you pulled on the House floor with that gas mask. I hope you're going to lend that to your constituents.
Give me a break.
So
I was making a point that we should be concerned about it as congressmen, because in Congress we go through the dirtiest airports and we interact with a lot of people. And by the way, I've been right. A lot of members of Congress have turned out to be positive. So give me a break. You can't ascribe my motives any more than anyone else could.
Nobody can hear this.
Bye,
Stop.
Matt.
Stop.
Bye,
Stop.
Matt.
Stop. Nobody can hear this. People try.
Bye, Matt. Wasn't that great? He's like, no, I was meaning that Congress, the airports are dirty. That's what I meant. I wasn't making fun of
metaphorical.
A pandemic that killed, 15,000 people. I wasn't making fun of that. I'm not that kind of jerk. Oh, wait, he is. And we've got an update on Factum. Previously, we had said that Factum was going into receivership and bankruptcy. It is not. Factum cut 80% of its 10-person staff. That do the quick math. That means there's 2 people left at Factum, and that they say the protocol is going to run whether or not Factum Incorporated continues or if we get reorganized. I kind of like this. This kind of goes back to what I believe about the Factum people, that they are willing to just keep this thing running. And that unlike, say, ChangeTip, who went out of business and doesn't exist at all, Factum at least wants to keep serving the data that they've allegedly stored in their unbreakable, all-powerful blockchain. It's funny, though, because, the 2 employees want to keep going, but their lead investor wants to get liquidated. So what this really means is that the idea had its day in the sun, right? We gave it a shot. Are we going to store deeds and land rights and whatever else on Factum on a blockchain? The answer is not right now. So Factum is not ready for whatever it is right now. It's not a profitable company. The investor wants to liquidate, get his money back, but that would, or some of his money back, that would resolve, of course, breaking down the product. The product wouldn't be able to run anymore. It wouldn't be able to serve the data. So the 2 employees are against this, and now they're at odds. So you still lose all your money if you bought the token sale, but maybe you invested in 2 employees keeping it running for a couple more years. That makes you feel better. Check it out, the Tower of London, October 2019. How cool is that? Dude with one of those sweet beaver skin hats or whatever. He's got this mask around his mouth, this kind of strap keeping his mouth safe. That's a coronavirus protection there. That's a bonus thing. No gloves.
It's like a ball gag.
I know, it does look like a ball gag. I'm not sure.
Mm.
And again, how incredibly uncomfortable. Also, you have to walk with this thing. I'd think it'd move around like a monkey hairdo or something, like a rock and roll wig. I'd be like, oh boy, you know, the Beatles. But yes, nice and distracting. That was at the Tower of London 2019. Let's see, this guy, he's physically sick right now. How did we lose our way so badly? I grew up in a time where things mattered. Today, the masses in his chosen profession, which seems to be stockbrokers, are cheering. Why are they cheering? Did the economy reopen? No. Did the companies we're buying and selling ownership shares report solid earnings? No. Has COVID-19 disappeared? No. Major League Baseball announced their first game? Nope. They cheer because stocks are higher. They cheer because the Federal Reserve has abandoned any bit of morality that might have existed. They cheer because the Fed just threw another kitchen sink at the markets, announcing another $2.3 trillion in buying. Bianco Research summed it up perfectly, saying, new SPV to buy $500 billion worth of munis. We'll buy junk now, if downgraded after March 22nd. We'll buy junk ETFs, now HYG. I don't know what that means. We'll buy PPP and CARES loans, expanded existing SPVs. So it just basically, it seems like they're buying everything. They're not just buying the top levels anymore, the safe things. They're buying the unsafe things. They're trying to bail out any investor they can, or at least get people something back for their money. Pretty exciting to see a stockbroker go in this and start talking about morality, right? Morality is good and bad. The idea that, you know, doing something bad, like cutting off aid to Iran, could cause thousands of people to die. Doing something good, like reactivating aid during a crisis, could save thousands of lives. But that would be a moral choice that you'd be making. Normally, you just want to see what side's going to make you more money, right? That's a financial choice. That's different than morals. Morals are different than finances.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
That's funny.
And there's Thomas has just posted the hash rates after the split, because I know that some more shifted back to Bitcoin. 98.8% is on Bitcoin, 0.5% on Bcash, and 0.7% on BSV. It's just getting savaged. Come on, guys, give up.
The war is
Just
over.
go to Bitcoin.
War is over. We told you how it would end, and it ended like we said it would. They get nothing. You get nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Savage.
Here's a graphic you can see from Kramer's show. In the background, the Dow's best week since 1938. In the foreground, more than 16 million Americans have lost jobs in 3 weeks. So really a contrast between this bizarre early stock market rebound, might be a dead cat, and the reality of 16 million Americans losing their jobs, likely losing their health care as well. And for most of these people, there might not be a company to go back to. If all the small businesses go out, if all the restaurants go out, they said already, I read an article recently about comic book stores, and they said comic book stores are gone. It's already happened. Like they say, oh, restaurants have a couple months. Comic book stores didn't have that. They saw this coming. They threw in the towel right away, and that this actually does affect people. There's now no way to distribute comic books in the old format. They say even the major distributor, the company that sends them around, is going out of business already. So yes, the entire comic book industry has changed. That might not matter to you, but just expand to any other industry, and I think you're going to see the same kind of strategic and structural problems. We talk about how Americans don't have another month of savings. Well, it turns out comic book stores don't have another month of savings either. And I'm sure there's dozens of other categories, entire categories of businesses where they used to work and they work fine. You know, they ran a clean shop. They had good products. They sold them to customers. They showed up on time. They do all the business things they could do. And it doesn't matter now. And again, we didn't save the firms. America put everyone on unemployment insurance. They didn't save the firms like Denmark. Denmark, you're going to have a company to go back to. They saved your restaurant. They kept your restaurant together. You can be a chef again. Whereas now in America, every chef is now competing against every other chef to get the remaining 5 jobs. It's not going to end quickly. It's not going to end quickly. It was also a horrible day today in history. I follow this great Twitter account at realtimeww2. Probably a bit of a shock to see these in my Twitter feed, but I don't retweet that often. But it's the anniversary of the Bataan Death March. The Japanese have been overwhelmed by 80,000 newly surrendered American prisoners. The Japanese are ordering their captives to march north through punishing Filipino terrain without food or water. The Japanese troops, indoctrinated by Bushido Code, Warriors' Code of Honor, hold surrender dishonorable. They began the Bataan March of Death by massacring around 400 Filipino officers. The American General King, when he was about to surrender, the only other alternative would have been a fruitless and violent frontal assault, everyone getting killed. He says, "Will my troops be well treated?" Bland reply, "We are not barbarians." But maybe they were. Classic World War II there. Since March 13th, President Trump has praised his own coronavirus response at least 116 times. That's a lot. Sure, we've had 470,000.
I wish I had his confidence, to be fair. I wish I was able to pat myself on the back as much.
There's something special about him these days after the impeachment. And again, I've been watching this guy since he was real estate, since he was still divorcing Ivana Trump and cheating with Marla Maples. Then he was marrying Marla Maples, and then he was divorcing Marla Maples, and he was treating with, I don't know, Ivanka Trump no, not Ivanka. Then I think he moved on to Melania. But 116 times since the impeachment, he's free. This is a free man. Like, this is, you think about, what is freedom? What is power, right? Sir Jerry Seinfeld, like, he's a powerful comedian. He does whatever he wants. He has $1 billion in Seinfeld revenues, right? He keeps getting more. They keep playing the show. That's pretty powerful, right? But if Jerry Seinfeld said something horrible, like Mel Gibson or something, we'd destroy him, right? He'd disappear. These days, if he touched a woman's exposed back or made a woman feel uncomfortable, we would destroy him, right? We would wreck him. This guy's definitely said crazy things. This guy's definitely touched people inappropriately. It doesn't really matter. And that's kind of the beautiful, like, history of his life now. Like, if we really go back, and maybe it ends differently. Maybe it ends with accountability. I don't know. But if we go back, it's just this beautiful, like, flaunting of the rules. Like, the rules say you can do this. The rules say this. His businesses go out of business. He's saved. Somehow the money comes out. His political career, he does all these opposite things no one else can do. And now, after the impeachment, I just see there's no controls. Like, the truly galactic, like, direction. Like, he can go in any direction. He could say anything. He can justify anything. I mean, he fixed his hair during the conference. He talked about it. He said he was #1 on Facebook. He said he understands science so much he's like a doctor. Like, there's this thing, there's a play or something, The Madness of King George, right? And maybe during the Revolution, King George wasn't quite all there together, and the colonists were asking for some pretty minor things, as opposed to losing the colonies, and he didn't want to give them anything, Fuck the colonists, right? But even King George, even like Napoleon, even like a powerful pope, maybe a dictator, maybe someone like Stalin or Lenin or Putin would have this kind of freedom, this kind of ability. But even like Lenin, Stalin and Trotsky were fighting for his seat, right? He had people that were going to come after him. There was kind of a secession. The way that this has built up, other than maybe secession through his family, it's ultimate power. It's been grasped in this entire person, and the impeachment's gone. There's no check on anything. I mean, even now they're saying the Democrats could impeach him again for coronavirus, or they could impeach him again for this and that. And we all know that, nothing's going to happen. Like he can't be punished in any way. Like right now it seems. And maybe this is just a brief period of time. And later on we look back and we're like, oh boy, did that guy get it. But right now, it looks like he can just get away with anything. And he doesn't care. And there's no consequences. It's a unique human
We got some
experiment.
news in. So Nate's saying that 14% of blood tests show that 14% of people are now immune to COVID based in one town in Germany.
Well, that'd be good. That sounds like positive news. I'm in favor of
Positive.
that.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
I like that.
How'd they find out? They test them?
MIT.
They just have a hunch?
Well, yes, MIT.
I just had a hunch.
Oh, I'm sure they
I
were
just had a hunch
testing.
that 14%
Blood
of
test.
that German town. No, they used a COVID test, didn't they? We're stopping those in the United States. We don't need those. Come on, dude. We don't need to test people. You kidding? I had a hunch. I had a hunch that 14% of that German town had developed antibodies. I am really good at hunches. I'm like doctor of hunches.
Probably the best at hunches.
Probably the best. Probably the best around. I got a lot of, there's bodies. Look at these bodies. We thought 6 weeks ago, we caught a glimpse of the mass graves dug in Iran, so large they could be seen from space. Americans were horrified and complacent. Now we watch dead bodies in New York. I don't give a shit. I moved to Florida. Florida's better than New York. Fuck New York now. So yes, Adamant Capital founder, that's actually Turda Meester. He says that they should shut down Bitcoin Cash. They should admit failure, and they should stop all this nonsense. To which Nunya Business writes, I'm sorry, have you met Roger Ver, the narcissist? So, yes, it's unlikely that they're going to just shut down Bcash. Here's Tur's original tweet. He said, in his opinion, Bitcoin clone Bcash, parentheses, bitch, should admit failure. It's completely centralized since 2019. It's declined 96% against Bitcoin. I'm sorry about your money. I'm sorry for your loss. Barely any users, no credible development community, no scaling process. Friends don't let friends buy Bcash. And he links to the transaction highway, which was previously an attempt to compare the two. And one of those roads one of those roads just seems empty now. One of the roads.
Can we check it out? Like, can we just see, just to see what the live?
Let's see here.
So,
graphics and
sound. Oh, here we go.
Oh boy, it's got a lot of sound. Okay, I tried to mute it. Sorry, everyone that has headphones on, they're all crying now. But yes, we can see the Bitcoin lanes. It's just going by. They're swinging by, and the Bitcoin Cash looks like there's just a couple motorcycles.
I remember when there was actually a reasonable amount of traffic, and I was thinking, yeah, that's it's the Bitcoin Cash is doing. It's not quite dead, but that's just that's looking pretty bad. That's probably people redeeming their old private keys, their old Bcash.
Well, these are probably all people sending it between exchange, getting ready to sell. It's like guys like, close, get my block through. I gotta sell. Oh shit, I gotta sell. I'm later. Get my block through. Oh shit. Sell.
No.
Oh well. Let's see. Yeah, Trump said he's immediately sending 100 ventilators to Colorado at the request of Senator Gardner. Seemed innocuous, but now it seems like the tweets, he's turned life-saving medical gear into a form of patronage. That's right. States that Trump likes seem to be getting more medical gear. And again,
it's like it's the equivalent of throwing out the toilet rolls in Puerto Rico, isn't it?
But only to your friends.
It toilet rolls, or
it was toilet paper or it was paper towels, maybe.
That was
in Puerto Rico. But yes, it's only to his friends. Only for my friends. And it's just, again, you're a bad criminal. You're not a very good criminal. Like, everyone's going to know later. Like, right now, sure, we're really busy. We're not keeping track of every ventilator in the country. But later on, people are going to write reports, and they're going to be, this state, Florida, which Donald Trump likes and needs to win re-election, got 3 times the amount as this state, California, which Trump doesn't like at all. Like, we're gonna know. This is another one of those like why you wouldn't do a crime with Bitcoin. Like, obviously you wouldn't do a crime because they can just track all the money and be like, oh, you paid this guy this to do that. You paid this guy this to do that. I mean, they track all the money. You'd have to be a stupid criminal to use Bitcoin that way, just like to do this kind of tweet. Like, I'm sending 100 ventilators to my friend in Colorado. It's just a bad look, man. I mean, it's going to come back on you later. Like, if you're really smart criminal, maybe you find a way to like do this under the tables, or like you deliver them like, Florida got ventilators out of the back of a truck. We don't know where they came from. You know, like there'd be mysterious deliveries and things. No, you're just doing it through the supply chain. We're just going to find out later. Hey, it's Friday. Yay! We did it. Doesn't really matter. I work every day. I do these shows every day, so it makes no difference to me. It's just that Friday means I'm behind the 8 ball on the Bitcoin group, which I didn't write and didn't schedule, but still somehow are going to perform later. Oh, that looks broken. I think we broke it.
What?
It seems all broken now. Let's refresh. I think it was.
There we go.
I think it had batched the transactions because we were off screen, and it wanted to show them back when we came on screen because there was like a fleet of motorcycles, and then this thing was.
Oh, it's kind of
too.
cute. I thought for a second there it was being used, but.
I know. Then we refreshed the page and it didn't work. Damn it. If only they could do that, they could have a successful project. Let's go ahead and open it up one more time to phone calls. If you'd like to join us on the show, put your own opinion in, stand up on your own 2 feet, say whatever you want. Well, pretty much. You could even say, make me introduce some other random show like you did yesterday. Dan, you missed it. This dude called me up. He's all like, I have to get you to say this. You have to say, it's time to open the NESer show. And I'm like, what's the NESer show? You know, I don't want to say, it could be something fucking horrible, right? And he's like, oh, it means not another show. I'm like, that's the dumbest name I've ever heard. But I didn't say that. I was nice to him. I was putting my nice face on. But yeah, and then
humoring him.
Then I did it. I was like, okay, you know, let's get rid of this asshole. Say whatever, you know. Oh, you're welcome to another show. Let's open the show. And then he was all like, thanks so much. Bitcoin is a fraud. I was like, you're shitty at prank calls. You're not very good at prank calls. You need to like work harder. Like, because again, we just go hassle his show. And like they were saying in the chat, they're like, yeah, he's going to regret that one in a few years. He's going to be telling his friends, he's like, yeah, I called into this radio show and I said Bitcoin is a fraud. And then it, you know, went to $1 million and I feel really stupid. I feel really stupid now. Like maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have thought more.
What have I done with my life?
Yeah. It could be a pretty big crisis for them. So they're going to have to deal with that. They'll have to think about it some more. But we also had some nice calls from Peter in Moscow and some other people called in. Dan, how are you doing on Tiger King? Have you caught up? Have you watched it all?
I've got the last 2 episodes, I think. Or there's a recent. No, there's. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I think I have one more, and then I heard there was another new episode. Is that correct?
The alleged new episode hasn't come out, but I definitely think, according to the last one,
I'm on the last one then. Yeah.
There's quite a lot to update them on, but
I've been slightly busy, like whilst I've had a bit of downtime.
You got rebuilding the garden, fixing all the gutters and painting the house and that kind of thing.
All that classic stuff. But then there's also a bit of a tongue-in-cheek song that I've written, a bit of a cover.
That's what Norm is saying in the chat. He's been he's what's it called? He announced the news before you. He's been spoiling your news everywhere. He's been spreading the word. There's a rumored legendary new Crypto Raptor song. We just have to ask you if it's true, right?
It's a bit tongue in cheek. So, but I'm trying to make it as.
What does that mean? That you're eating asshole? I know it's tongue in cheek. I like to turn the other cheek. That's what Jesus said. He meant something else though. Hey, we got a phone call.
Fish and bread.
Get some regular callers on here. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas. This is Nate calling you again.
Hey, Nate.
From Oregon. How you doing?
Hey, Nate.
It's going good. What's on your mind today about Bitcoin or the virus or whatever?
Oh, I saw a little dip there. So, buying again. I'm sorry that I missed the knife on that big drop we just had. But I'm definitely a believer in what's happening right now in diversifying assets, getting some Bitcoin, getting some silver, getting everything out of the stock market. It's just wildly failing. But
gold.
not that I really have anything in there. I had a little bit of 401k at some point, but I'm sure that's gone.
Yeah, that's some strange money. You can't really get it out. I know I moved some of my like, because I have a little retirement thing too, you know, and I ahead of this, I thought we were going into a bear, so I did move some of my money into cash. I took some profit, but then sadly, the cash is still stuck in there. I want to take it out and pay my other bills. I got problems, you know. But no, there's some kind of thing I would take big penalties. I don't really understand it, but yeah, that money is trapped. I can't get that money out.
Yeah, that's just the government's way to make you gamble your money. Right, they're making you gamble in the stock market, even if you don't want to participate.
You're right. It's a lot like I tried one of those gambling sites once, and I put like $20 in, and I won a football game, and I had $40, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm out. You know, I don't care. And they were like, no, you have to gamble until you get $100 to take the money out. And I was like, you know, what if I don't get $100? But yeah, they're essentially doing that with my my retirement that I worked very hard for. So yeah, there was a great article recently how they switched from pension funds, where the company would be required to pay you a little bit each year, so that you could live and be old. Hey, we got a new block. That's pretty neat. Bitcoinal shows you when we get a new block. Way to go, DJ Booth. New features. And yeah, that they don't have pension funds anymore. Instead, they have these 401ks, and that worked really great while the stock market was going up. But now everyone just lost their retirement. So it failed. Like, we don't have a retirement program. Social Security is going to be super stressed, even more than they thought when they stole all the money instead of putting it in a lockbox, like Al Gore said. But I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I
just
drifted
as
all over.
foolish as like tying somebody's health care to their employment.
Yeah.
You see how foolish it is tying your retirement to how well the economy is doing. Because when the economy tanks of no doing of your own, so there goes all of your money.
I just wish that we had taken. I wish we had taken all the healthcare money and put that into the market too, because then we'd be gambling with our healthcare as well.
Exactly. Sounds like a really great idea. We're kind of gambling with it anyway.
Yeah. Well, not having it. Imagine if all the people who had it didn't even have it. They just had gambling accounts, because that's what W. Bush wanted to set up. They were called health savings accounts. And instead of having healthcare, you'd have a stock market account that you could save up money for when things got really bad, which we all know they're going to get bad. Like, these bodies melt down, right? You have to be an idiot not to realize that. But no, we're just going to keep going with the whole for-profit thing, see how that goes.
Oh, yeah, totally. Gamble everything all the time. But, you know, I called in. I wanted to, a couple of things. First off, yesterday we had talked about the number of negative test results being an interesting metric when talking about the number of positive results. And so I missed the first part of the show. I wasn't sure if you had caught that.
I tried to talk about it, but I don't have quite the right website. You know, certainly this is kind of an ad hoc daily show. So, and I showed the hospital numbers. We tried to go over the beds. I showed the severity. It was like 96% not severe worldwide.
Right.
They didn't have severity numbers for the U.S., so that didn't help me much. I'm certainly trying, and I want to present good and useful information. But if there's not a good website for it, it's very hard. So.
No, you're awesome, dude. I love what you're doing here, and I really appreciate the forum and the people in the chat and everything. I mean, this is my people right here.
Hey.
Even though everybody has different views and opinions, this is been a very respectful place to talk about these things. But, you know, the interesting thing was I wanted to, you know, on the Worldometer, they do have where I saw total tests broke down per state. So you can extrapolate just by taking the total tests and the positives, how many actual positive tests out of how many negative test results. So, you know, you see 9,000 positive results, but they did 29,000 tests. So that means 20,000 people were negative. And then the other thing was I just wanted to mention that MIT thing has really got me some hope today. That MIT Tech Review on that study in Germany, and I am seeing that some people are saying, well, we may be questioning the numbers out of Germany, and that's cool. And maybe the numbers are questionable, but we have seen in other countries blood tests for antibodies, and the fact that it seems like in most cases you can't get reinfected by the same strain twice. So I thought that was interesting. Now, there are a couple strains out there that you can get infected with multiple strains, of course. And it seems like maybe there may have been some more severe ones in places like Italy, maybe even had a different strain, some people are saying. But I thought that study in Germany was interesting, and
it's also good that
it's a sample of
the German study can outweigh
of,
that Chinese study. They had a Chinese study a little while ago where they were worried that people weren't forming antibodies. It was a very small study. I hope the German study outweighs that. But yes, we're definitely monitoring this new stuff. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say the sample size is, it's 500 residents, so it's not huge, but it's, it's at least I think quite promising in the early stages. Obviously, they're going to need to see. I think that other stat you pointed out, mate, it's a very good, interesting point that we don't have that on, say, the normal worldometers. Be interesting if we could see, right, there's 20 million people, 20 million, tests, but only 1.6 million cases. Now, I know that's obviously not the case. Exactly. It's nowhere near that, but it's a very important stat to have. You want to know, because if it is 20 million and only 1 point, it makes the numbers completely different ballgame.
Exactly. It just kind of presents them differently. And that was kind of my point yesterday, Dan, when we were talking, was that how you present the data is really important. You present it one way, it looks absolutely terrifying. Oh my God, there was 10,000 new positive tests last night. Well, out of how many negative tests as well, So that's an important way to present the data. And Thomas, you're awesome. I love what you're doing. I don't think you need to change a thing, my friend. I just love to be able to tune in and say that, because we talk about that, and it's funny because I've talked about this with like workmates and things like that, and they're like, conspiracy theory. Next thing you're going to be talking about 5G, and I might, but I'm not gonna in that conversation. Right? And I'm like, no, this isn't a conspiracy theory, man. I mean, these are blood tests for antibodies, and this is how viruses work. So I feel like this is super hopeful news, and anywhere that we can point out hope, and that Mother Nature is doing the job, then I think we need to point it out. So I appreciate the forum, and I appreciate you guys, and thank you. I'll hop off and let whoever else hop on.
All right. Thanks so much, Nate, for the call. And yeah, it's good to have some hopeful news around here, and scientifically backed too. So good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, my friend. Talk to you later.
All right. Give us a call anytime. And you can give us a call now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or on the phone at 1-518-600-1949. International users just dial 001. Fees may apply. Long distance charging and other calls may apply. Blah, blah, blah. Remember that was such a big deal? Long distance charging. They charge you for every call.
It's amazing now, isn't it? Remember when, I remember when internet there was a connection fee on dial-up, and it was like £2 for an hour.
That's brutal.
So, and if it dropped off, you then had to pay another £2.
They used to sell AOL internet in hours. 99 hours of internet on this disk, 24 hours, 160 hours of internet. So
old school.
Yeah. Come a long way, but still a bunch of idiots. Still can't do it right. Still can't get things done. Still confused. Still going to have to wear one of these fucking things. Oh, well. I was going to read more about, this is funny the way the highway cache, if you run it in the background, it just goes overloaded. I'm sure there's a programming reason for this. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is John from San Diego.
Hey, John. How's it going? What's on your mind this morning?
Fantastic. Never better. Hey, so couple of things before I get to my question. I'm just wondering if anyone knows how much cash there is at the Federal Reserve.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
It's an infinite amount. It's a lot.
Infinite.
Excellent. Wonderful. So Thomas, here's my question. So I'm surprised you're so pro vote by mail. As a technology and crypto guy, I think you'd embrace something cryptographic with non-repudiation, digital certificates, something you could test to see that your vote was counted, and that had a third-party watch group that you could, put your digital hash to vote with and validate that it was counted, things like this.
I agree. I think as a crypto person and as a computer person, I should be that way too. But part of the problem is that I am a computer person. and I don't trust other computer people. And I think that's pretty rampant amongst computer people. And as much as I do think we could have digital signatures, I think you could also fake digital signatures.
But isn't the mail, isn't it, there's more proven fraud with mail than the electronic?
No, there's no voter fraud. Like generally there's almost 0% voter fraud and 0% vote by mail. It would just be very difficult to collect all the ballots, like, and to cancel them, or to, you have to replace them with other ballots. It's just complex because of the input system. You can put your mail-in ballot into any of the blue boxes. So you'd have to control the entire postal service to really rig the system. And even then, that would be a lot of people to have in your conspiracy. I think there are.
I'm with you, Thomas, on the conspiracy thing. I don't agree that there's a huge amount of voter fraud. I mean, you have to, the registration process is really where the gatekeeper is, and you register by mail, and you're registering by address, and you have a local polling booth that you have to go to, and they cross your name off the list so that you're not going to vote twice. So it's pretty foolproof, but you still do have to go to the polls. And if we're talking about this whole notion of social distancing, how about vote by web browser where you have a digital certificate? You already have millions of DoD employees and contractors that have their common access card. They already have an ID card with a certificate-based chip that's issued by the DoD. So these people log into their DoD websites, and their cryptographic token, is already used. You're already using, your PIN to unlock your certificate, to be able to, authenticate yourself, and to be able to do certain things. So it seems like we already have a lot of this infrastructure in place. Vote by web, and then you could and then people, if you want to, you can, issue your vote, or you can, give your hash out. I mean, we already have all these chips in our cards, in our ATM cards. It seems like issuing a DoD or a government digital certificate is not like super difficult.
Well, part of the complexity comes, with I was going to say that. Yeah, part of the complexity is in the voting system, basically, and we have to go back a while, and people don't really understand this, but voting without an ID is a right. Voting without an ID means that you don't have to go to the DMV and renew your card to vote. You might not be a driver. A lot of older people aren't drivers. A lot of poor people aren't drivers. So they don't necessarily have ID. So when these voter ID things come in, essentially what they're saying is restrict the voting pool to only people that have ID, which again doesn't matter to all the people that have ID, but matters quite a lot to those who don't have it. I think the reason not to do a web voting system is that we're just not ready for it. I believe it would be hacked easier than a vote by mail system. That's not to say that we can't get some of the same advanced features that you want from a vote by mail system. On my vote by mail ballot, they could put a QR code. When my ballot is run through the machine, I could have written down kind of the other half of that QR code, like the password. I could have saved it into an app. I could have scanned it anonymously or written down a little code on a piece of paper. And this could allow me to check later that my vote was counted by a tabulator. I could even probably confirm that my vote went a certain way, that I voted for this party or that party. That could be anonymized in the data. And we could have access to this whole anonymous set that then you could go in and say, hey, this one is my vote. My vote was counted. So I think we could add advanced features to voting by mail. But that core part right there where you're interfacing, that you interface directly with your ballot, that piece of paper is your ballot. So if there's a later proof that we have to go through, we're going to be going to the actual primary source document that you touched, the thing that you signed. And then when they're counted by human beings, they're going to count that. Any other system doesn't produce the same kind of paper ballot. Part of the voting system isn't just like, voting once through the web, but being able to rerun that election. So if you used any kind of web system, sure, they could have it spit out a card immediately, and we're going to trust that that card is a backup copy of your vote and that it verifies and everything. But we all know that entire system could be faked. Like the man in the middle, they could just be producing fake cards so that when we do the recount, it matches the fake total. Vote by mail is cheaper.
And I think that,
I mean, it's just, I think it's a better
yeah,
system.
no, I think that goes to your solution there, where if people could, provide that validation, that non-repudiation, that ability to say, hey, I voted, my vote was counted, here it is. You might not be able to see the contents of my vote, but there's the hash that I produced.
Well, I think you also need to see the contents. I need to know that my vote was marked correctly. Part of the problem with tabulating machines in 2004 is they just flipped the vote totals from Bush to Gore, right? Or from Bush to Kerry. We can't have that. Like it has to kind of be verifiable. I would agree with this. And this is a second half of a vote by mail system. Sadly, they've already spent all that money on voting machines, individual ones, which again, kind of seems, it doesn't make sense with our computer environment, right? They basically set up a bunch of terminals and they don't have a central server. They're individual voting machines. They're more like PCs. They're less like terminals. They're less, connected to a central server.
And weirdly, we have all these terminals in our houses and on our phones, right? So it seems like if we're going to do this, we could do it in a way that was along the ethos of a decentralized and cryptographic and validated nature. But I hear your arguments, and they're good arguments.
I think we could. I think we still could, but we might need this kind of intermediary step where we use a primitive system, the mail. Again, originally people on horses delivering leather sacks full of letters. If we use that primitive system as a stopgap to get us to where you want to be, I think we could run straw polls on like a test system, like a web straw poll, like the way we do now with polling, statistical polling. We could do actual polling. Do you like this? Do you approve right track or wrong track of the country, or do you approve of the president? We could actually sample. That
sounds like too much like democracy. What are you trying to do there?
I know. Well, and if we could have that, then we could test the web system against the vote by mail system, and if they get the same results, 10 times in a row, we could go towards testing the web system. But obviously, if there's a discrepancy, we need to have that kind of control group. And right now, we don't even have a control group. We have dirty voting machines. We have an unequal system. Depending on what district you live in, you might have more or less voting machines. Your precinct might be crowded or not crowded. It might take you all day to vote. All these kind of things. Like that makes it an unequal system. Whereas vote by mail, even people in Alaska have mailboxes. Like Dan was saying, part of the reason the post office is so strapped is because they have to deliver to every mailbox, because they have to deliver to every American, which happens to just be, on the flip side, the perfect vote by mail delivery system, right? It goes to everybody. Like we pay more because it goes to everybody. And again, it would just, as much as people are probably mad about it, it would codify the use of the postal service. It would be another reason why it's such an essential part of liberty. And it was actually, it was created by the first Congress. I mean, the postal service was one of the very first things that we made because it was so useful. And even now, as we do have email and we do have encryption, we have all these other things, it's still pretty darn useful to have someone deliver a piece of paper for, I don't know what it is now, $1.30 or something, hardly anything at all. And they'll take it across the whole country. So
I love it. Good discussion in response to that. Hey, quick question before I get off. I remember a while back, I don't even know how long ago this is now, but you did an episode where you walked step by step through building a Bitcoin node, and I believe you did it on like Ubuntu or maybe CentOS, and you did all the Linux commands and did that. Are you planning on doing something like that again? Unfortunately, I wanted to do it and I wanted to follow along. I didn't do it, so I still haven't built myself a Bitcoin node, and I'm looking to dedicate. I've got a bunch of laptops that are doing nothing. I want to do this. So what's your recommendation? Do you have any updated or new thoughts on this?
Well, I haven't done it in a long time. I'm not sure if I did that one or if it was maybe Chris Ellis or someone else here on the network. It's been a long time, but I did like an intro of how you could create how you could boot into Tails Linux and create a private key and have a real Bitcoin account and all that. And even then they don't know because Tails might be There was all kinds of, you had to import the JavaScript thing, but the JavaScript randomizer might not be very good, so your accounts might not be random, even if you go through all that work. But one of the ways people are doing nodes now is buying these little pre-made boxes. And this probably isn't what you're looking for, but companies like Nodl, Nodl, or Casa Hodl sell people these little boxes, and then it's more like an appliance. You plug it in next to your network box, and if you want to do more advanced things like send your own transactions, that's there. But if you just want to aid the network, you can just buy one of these appliances, plug it in, and you don't have to do as much work. Otherwise, I think you could build it from the command line and do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, or just like if you want to run a full node, just get one of your old laptops and download the Bitcoin QT wallet, and it'll just sync, and there you go. You're running a full node. That's all that it is. You can get more complex versions. You can run it on Linux, run it on a VPS, do whatever. But as long as you've got, I think at the moment it's 240 gigabytes, the Bitcoin blockchain size. So as long as you've got 300 and enough for your just slim operating system or whatever, then you can run your full node, and it's really easy.
Now, do you know if you have to open a port through your home DSL firewall, or is it an outbound connection that you're making? How does that work in terms
I think
of...
I don't remember having to change any of the ports, to be honest. So, I just literally fired up a QT wallet, and you can still get it for like Mac. You can get it for obviously Linux, Windows. But just load it up, and if you need to change the ports, you'll realize because it's not syncing. And I think, is it like 8332 or something? So check it out, Bitcoin port.
Yeah, it might use a port that's already open. You might not need that configuration step, but
yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering if it requires inbound, right? If you have a home natted DSL, or I'm saying DSL, if you need an inbound port to reach your node, if somebody has to hit that IP address in that port to get to my machine inside of my house, I'm wondering if that's a requirement. I'm not really sure. I probably should just research this and not call you guys and bug you, but
that's
I haven't heard anyone say. I haven't heard anyone really say. If when you have a Bitcoin node, how they communicate amongst themselves. How do they reach out and touch each other, right? Like, so
it might be that they just use a traditional port that's already open, but I mean, it already sounds like, if you know about port forwarding, then you're capable of going into your router and forwarding the port. If anyone's listening at home, it's actually not that hard. I mean, it's a series of menus. If you had the instructions, you could follow along. And the idea even makes sense. You have like a port number, and normally you want to block all these things because bad things could come in, but you're expecting a good thing on this port, so you go ahead and open it up, and now you can communicate. You used to have to do it a lot more. I think people have gotten further away from editing their routers these days. But yeah, I think it would be doable. I think you can handle it.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm sorry. I thought I recalled you doing that step by step and Linux command stuff. I remember being impressed with your skills. So
I did one recently. I set up a Lightning node. It was like it was whatever it is for light. Yeah, and it was on the temporary network, and it was really good. I got through it eventually. I screwed up some of the commands. Learn from my example. Just read the instructions all the way. I kind of skim things really fast sometimes, so I don't read the end of the line. And it's like, at the end of the line, it's like, you need to push shift instead of enter. I was like, oh shit, I didn't see that. And I look like an idiot. But no, so yeah, just follow the instructions, and I think you should be able to do it. But and call us back, let us know how it goes. If you had good luck or if it was easy. Like Dan's saying, you could just run the wallet, and that would be the simplest way just to support the network. I don't know if you could then send your transactions through it, or if you have to do that, that's like a whole second level.
Yeah, it's the QT wallet. It's where I started off.
Well, if you use QT, I guess, but if you wanted to configure like your web wallet or your wallet on your phone to like route your transaction, I mean, the fancy guys, they do all this stuff that like makes it worth it to run a node. The normal people that just want to support the network, they just kind of plug it in and it helps, So yeah, you just have to decide at what level you want to do that. And yeah, there's a lot of like privacy reasons why you'd want to run your own transactions and these kind of things. But for your average user, they might not care. So yeah, not everyone runs it.
would be like my next step, which would be to use a ledger or Trezor and see that I can interact with my own node directly, or something like this to validate that the transactions are on the blockchain when I do it, or something like that. That would be kind of my next step in learning. But
and that'd be a really good idea. I heard once, and I don't know that this is still true, but something that like all of the transactions or whatever for Trezor were going through a certain server. So someone had taken out that server, and then suddenly you couldn't send through your Trezor normally. And I'm sure they fixed this and it works now. But at the time, if you could just connect to your own node, then you wouldn't be so reliant on whatever they've configured in the software. You're now, managing your own things. You've taken more responsibility, which again could end horribly. Be careful with your money and everything. But it could end great. I mean, you could feel more empowered. You could start doing more software, more programs, trying new things because it worked, So.
Well, I've had that same concern because, I do have a Trezor. I've tried out a couple of different, tokens and you browse to their website and authenticate, you authenticate to your own Trezor, but you're using their website as kind of your interface. And this has had me concerned if the Trezor website ever goes down. How do I interact with my Trezor when my front end is gone?
Just a basic backup plan in case that happens, and it's not the greatest. Is you pretty much have to go back to your original seed. You've written down your original 24 words. You could then take that and import it into another wallet, which would give you access to all the wallets that are connected to that seed. So all of your Trezor stuff would be all linked in there. I don't know if you get access to all the features, and I don't know about the altcoins and all that kind of stuff. That's complicated. I mean, you have to read some more on that. But just as a general Bitcoin thing, your Bitcoin wallet is your words. So keep your words safe. And if anything goes wrong with all the fancy devices, the reason you have the Trezor or the Ledger really is so that it can create the keys offline, because that's a little bit safer. They never touch the network. And so that you can sign your transactions offline and you can send them out that way. So it's a little safer for the use of Bitcoin. But if you just want to store it for 10 years, the words are pretty much as good. And you could just stack the Trezor right next to the words, put it all in the safe deposit box, or bury it under your house, or put it in cement, or whatever you want to do, send it into space. And then, someday when you want to get it back, the words will still work regardless of whatever's happened with Trezors and ledgers and advanced systems. So.
On a somewhat unrelated note, I did, do the hex thing, right? I did Richard Hart's Delio. And one of the interesting learning experiences that I had from doing that was that not all of the Bitcoin addresses that were listed in my ledger and my Trezor were the actual addresses that could get your hex, right? Because there was the change. And, so you had these nested addresses that were underneath that major address. And so there would be a scenario where there would be no Bitcoin under that major address, but it had to go down the chain and find the change address where the remaining Bitcoin was. And I thought that was surprising, right? So it made me wonder in a backup scenario, hey, how do I know what my addresses are? I have my seed, right? I can do this, but I'm not really sure where my, public addresses are, and if those addresses are even 100% correct. It adds some question marks to my mind. I don't know if you guys have had
a lot of this
experience.
is, and I forget the word they used to describe it when they created it, but all of the seeds are now generated from the same seed. So when they make a new wallet, it's kind of linked to all the other wallets, so they would be able to find it. It's very complicated, I'm sure. So in generally, I think you would be
Merkle tree thing. I think I heard about that. You're right.
Derivation path.
Yeah, so it's a tree of seeds, and I imagine your whatever other altcoin account would be linked in there. Your Bitcoin Cash account would be linked in there. All these different things would all be linked to that original seed. But obviously, you could go read more about it for sure. I'm sure there's details.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Thanks for addressing my general nonsense, but
Oh, it's really
Thomas.
good, man, to have
Glad
the
talking to you.
questions. A lot of people have these same questions, but they won't call in, and a lot of people will gain from this. And even if we're wrong, tell us in the comments. We'll go look it up. We'll repeat it tomorrow. We want to get all these things right, but it's complicated. And again, for new people coming in, even for old people that have been in this a while, they might not know. They might not have tried this. So it's always good to have these questions. It's really good.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. Take care.
Thanks so much, man. Give us a call anytime. And you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 1-518-600-1949. Kind of starting to lose my voice. Not a good sign for the Bitcoin group that I haven't written, that I haven't recruited for, that I'm supposed to do in an hour. But we'll see. We'll see about that. I had some ideas at the last minute, stories we could talk about. Stuff like... I don't know what's happening in Bitcoin lately. I just forgot. I thought of Binance buying CoinMarketCap, but then I was like, no, that was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, we did that. Yeah,
that's definitely not hip Bitcoin news. But anyway, I'll look at a list. I'll pick some stories. Maybe we'll still do it. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
Well,
anything to say?
I'm probably if we are going to do it, I'm probably going to have to take a little mini break because I need to get some food and.
It's probably a pretty good idea. I think we did pretty well this morning. A little show. We got some phone calls. It was nice. We did some politics news. I think everyone survived. I think people getting better at living through the politics news, the nightmare that is our world. I thought I'd be more positive. I was like, be more positive. People are upset because they hear coronavirus doom and gloom everywhere, and they tune into you to hear about positive Bitcoin, and you just give them coronavirus doom and gloom, and I'm like, I can't change my mind.
I think you're more positive.
We're more scientific based, but I also feel like we're all on this station, that we've all tuned into coronavirus, and that we can't change our minds. Like, as much as everyone is like, just distract, just watch that Tiger King, just do this, don't think of that, run around the block, do anything that's not coronavirus. And at the end of it, it's like, oh yeah, remember fucking coronavirus? Can't go outside anywhere.
Yeah, I saw a cool little cartoon the other day, which was something like, "Oh, I miss it when I missed Brexit talk now," or something. It got to the stage where Brexit just made me feel sick to hear it. But now, kind of, COVID's just starting to eke into that. What are we going to talk about? What's going to be on the news? Like, I haven't been watching normal TV recently. I've just been flipping between the different news channels. It's going to be so weird getting
the local people are just repeating the national. They're just reciting the national news and just worrying about it from their own locations.
Yeah, we
had a sad story on the local news at noon yesterday in Las Vegas. It's kind of a sad story, and one of the anchors had come down with cancer and had to go through all the radiation and stuff. And she made it. She's doing good. The cancer's gone. And but as it is in our new fucked up times, she's moving to Arizona, and she can't even come to the studio to visit her old buddies. She had to say goodbye over remote. And she wanted to go see her friend, and her friend was there and all this stuff, and they had to say goodbye remotely. And it was just really sad, and it was really one of those touching things of our times where normally it's no big deal to go down to your old work and say goodbye. You're moving to another state or something, and you can't. So yeah, that was a kind of an interesting story from the local news. Pretty good for them. But I think we might have to go check out a little local news ourselves. Maybe find a cough job. So. Not because I'm coughing, because I talk too damn much. But that's part of the job, right? That's a fun job. So checking again, the price of Bitcoin is down 5.12% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,911, a high of 7,321, and a low of 6,756. That's $1 for 14,455 Satoshis. Looks like we're going the other way over that 15,000 Satoshi barrier.
Don't sell Bitcoin.
This time. There it is, John Oliver. If you click on this little bowl that says
Don't
HODL.
sell Bitcoin.
Don't sell Bitcoin.
Don't sell
Don't
Bitcoin.
sell Bitcoin.
Is that John Oliver, isn't it?
It's John Oliver.
John Oliver.
Another feature of the Bitcoinal chart designed by DJ Booth. Look, you can even dig the snow off the things with your shovel. How fun is that? Give you something to do, something to click on. But thanks so much for joining us.
guys.
Pretty much lost my voice. Not going to play another video. I have a theory on playing other videos that maybe people aren't clicking on this video because it says pre-recorded across the bottom. But then that was supposed to be like a useful thing to tell people that it's pre-recorded. So we have the option of playing some old videos because we have a lot of old videos. I don't know. So I'm going to keep working on that. We'll see. What I'll probably do is what the news does. You put a big bright red live flag when it's live, and then you take it away the rest of the time so that they can't even tell. So they can't tell that it's not live.
Clever.
Yeah, that's smart. You got to copy what smarter people than you do. But that's it. I'm tired of talking. I don't have any voice left. Until next time, bye-bye.